Hello, welcome to the Swapping Joysticks Awards 2023. I'm your host, Biggest Bennis, and joining me, as always, as he has done for years and years and years.
Not that long.
Well, since 2020.
That's not that long.
It's Ed Nightingale from Eurogamer.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm all right. It's the last week before Christmas.
It is. I just remember it's the
Not
awards.
been working.
Yeah.
And relaxing.
And it's the...
very dry lips.
Oh, how do you get those?
The cold weather.
Oh, yeah. I just realised it's the Swapping Joysticks Awards today, and I'm not wearing a shirt. I haven't done my hair. And you've got out. You've got your hair. Had your hair done this morning.
Yes, I got my hair did.
You did, and you've got your shirt.
I mean,
fancy shirt.
It's not fancy. It's just the denim shirt.
I like a denim shirt. I do love a denim shirt. But yeah, welcome. This is Swapping Joysticks Awards 2023. We are going to go through the categories. We've got 9 categories, I believe, and 8 of those. We have 3 nominations, except for one that's 4, because I couldn't work out which one to get rid of, and we'll do it.
Okay, sure.
And then there is the Community Game of the Year, which everybody in the community has been voting for. We've had well over 60 votes.
Wow.
Yeah, which
Nice.
is incredible. It's been a wild year for Swapping Joysticks, hasn't it? Tuna, I'll let you make a speech.
Wow, put me on the spot, why don't you? Yeah, it's been a great year. We started off slow.
Wow. Wow.
Well, we were doing it on your stream, and then we've changed things up, and we're doing YouTube videos, and we had a great podcast with the very lovely Ben Starr,
Which really,
which definitely sort of helped us out a lot.
There's quite a few people actually that have they're probably listening to us now who found us through Ben Starr's interview or the interview we did with Deborah Wild and Jennifer English.
Exactly.
The Baldur's Gate 3.
And we've got more plans for next year already.
We
literally just now been texting. So
Yeah, we just got a message back saying that that person can do both weekends.
Great.
There you go.
So
Tease.
we are going to be recording another one in January.
And they're not Baldur's Gate and they're not Final Fantasy. So we're spreading our wings.
Yes, they are.
Oh wait, not Final Fantasy 16.
Yes. Spoiler.
Ooh.
So yes, we have some guests coming, and we're going to have even more next year as well. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. More interviews.
Your coat's on the back of my
Oh
chair.
yeah, you can move that.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. I think switching from the streamed version to this, I don't know, it's felt a bit cozier. We actually look at each other rather than at the screen and in the chat,
Well,
and we can, it just feels a bit more natural. And we can also record it whenever. We don't need to stick to a specific time.
I mean,
We do
getting
have a
you to
specific-
stick to a specific time is an impossibility.
Exactly. So it's much better. That's why this year I've been focusing a lot more on YouTube. I mean, Twitch is still going, and I might actually add the odd extra stream in next year, but once things have settled down. And I've loved that. But also YouTube is great because like yesterday I recorded 4 videos of my Spider-Man Let's Play. And I'm like, oh, great, that's me. That's until the 30th of December. Like for another 2 weeks, it's sorted.
Nice.
So, and also on our next podcast, which will be the Game of the Year podcast, I'm going to announce my next Let's Play.
Oh,
Very excited.
you made a decision then.
I have
Shock horror.
Well,
Okay, that means no.
I was about to say I have, and then I realised that we're recording that straight after this, so I will have to make that decision.
You will have to make a decision very soon.
Yeah, okay. No, I think I'm very, very sure that I have. I'll just mull it over lunch.
Okay.
And we'll discuss it.
Sure.
So I'll give that little tease. Also, there's going to be a way that somebody listening can win one of our top 10 games in Game of the Year. And you must answer 2 questions, quite easy questions, and put the answers into a Google Doc form.
Is it what's your name and what's your address?
No, it's not like this morning.
Okay.
But it will be something that. But we'll do the question in the middle of both podcasts, so people have to listen to enter. Bribery.
Both
private?
podcasters in this one.
This one and the Game of the
Have
Year
you
podcast.
planned this then?
No, I've just remembered now.
Okay.
So you can come up with the question.
God.
All right.
Don't put that on me.
No, we will. It'll be something like, what was the? I don't know. We'll come up with something. But anyway, if you want a chance of winning one of our top 10 Game of the Years, like any game from the top 10, then you can enter by listening to the podcasts, both of them.
Great. Now I have to think of a question.
No, you don't. It's fine. We can think of something off the top of our head immediately. But anyway, so we have awards to go through and we have awards to discuss, and I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm guessing if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on your podcast player, then you'll know if it's like 6 hours long. But I mean, I think that's what we did one year. It went for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that's why we split them. So the first award and nominations. Let's go and move to. Oh, look at this! Look how cool that
is. A Google Doc.
Yeah, it is a Google Doc. So it is hottest mess. So we don't mean it's not. We're not nominated.
No, sadly. Otherwise, we would, obviously win.
Messiest mess.
Yeah, so just say, so we've got 3 nominations, and the nominations are a mix of sort of things we've considered and some that were nominated by you, the viewers and listeners.
Yeah, a lot of people who, on YouTube, on Twitter and in the Discord, we put the call out for nominations, and we took those nominations. I don't think we did for this one because we already had 3 perfect ones.
Yeah, some of them are just us. But we are then going to discuss the nominations and choose our winner. Yes. So it's our choice, but based on some of your suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. So if you nominated and it's not there, it's a mix of things, and also it's kind of based on what we can talk about as well. Like
what we know.
Yeah, we're not going to start talking about the merits of a game or of an actor or something that we haven't even heard.
So. Yes.
Hottest mess. The nominations are Lords of the Fallen, Gollum, and The Day Before. So Lords of the Fallen, Gollum, and The Day Before. 2 of those are like the worst rated games in the last few years, and one of them you reviewed.
Yeah.
So why is Lords of the Fallen such a mess?
Well, so I'd say it's not as much of a hot mess now. Lords of the Fallen, when it first came out, was messy. The performance was terrible. There was a fairly decent, and it still is, a fairly decent Souls game, but it was very messy. The performance was almost unplayable. Like, frame rate was just like 1 a second.
Yeah.
So it made it virtually unplayable when it first came out. Now, the developers, I will say, have worked very, very hard to release constant patches for, even now, I think they're still releasing patches. And it came out on the 13th of October, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
But the first few weeks especially, there were a lot of patches, like one every couple of days, to try and improve the performance.
It's a bit depressing when games are out and then you've just got to wait 6 months for all the patches to kind of fix it.
Yeah, it's a case of, like, whose decision was this to release the game at this point? Because it was sort of running better on PC than console, but even then, PC I still don't think was great. When I reviewed it, it was on PS5, which did not have good performance.
Yeah, I saw.
Yes, you saw. So it wasn't great. Like I say, it's been improved a lot now, but at the time, it wasn't good. And I don't think it should have been released. I think it should have waited and should have been optimized before.
Should have been canned.
No. It should have been optimized before it came out. I guess I don't know whose decision that was. Was it someone high up that just made a decision of this has to come out at this point for financial reasons or what? And ultimately, we as consumers are the ones that suffer having to, buy a game that maybe doesn't live up to expectations because the performance isn't good, and that's not a good thing. And that's something I think we need to stop in the industry is releasing games before they're ready and thinking, oh, we'll just patch them later, because then people have a crap experience, which at the beginning that was.
And it sounds exactly like City Skylines 2 for people. Like, yeah, the performance is pretty bad. I'm currently, my major city there is a megalopolis. Is it megalopolis? Or is that the ultimate one? No, it's like a metropolis. So it's pretty big, but like the frame rate is poor, and I've got a 3080, and I'm not even streaming from that PC as well. The gaming PC feeds into my streaming PC, so it's not got an extra load on it. But that performance is pretty low, and it's missing a few features. And I know that people have complained about that game and saying, thing is, if they'd released it and said, hey, this is early access, we're going to add features to it and optimize it over the next year, and then 1.0 will come out, I think people will understand a bit more. But the thing is, they wouldn't have been able to sell it for 50, 60 quid. Whereas, if it's a full release, they'd be like, hey, pay full amount. I don't know if Lords of the Fallen would have worked as a early access game, because it's not kind of a game that you can repeat and replay like City Skylines 2.
Well, I mean, you might repeat it a lot if you die a lot. But yeah, I don't think it would have been a great early access game. I think it just needed a little bit more time in the oven.
We played it at Gamescom, and I didn't particularly like that build. And they told me that there was a new one coming the following Tuesday, and then apparently there wasn't.
I mean, at Gamescom, I didn't notice the frame rate being. It was perfectly playable. It might not have been the smoothest, but it was absolutely playable, and worked and controlled fine. And I really enjoyed it at that point. And then getting the final build, it was like 10 times worse than that. So I think it was just they were just coming in hot. Literally, it was coming in hot when they were still working on it as we were trying to review it, and that's just not the best experience for a review.
Now, Gollum, you went all the way over to Hamburg to play.
I did.
And how was that?
Hamburg to preview it, and I had it was a lovely trip. Had a very nice time.
You were there for like 24 hours, weren't you?
It was a very quick trip. Yes, the studio was lovely. Everyone at the studio was lovely. The game was not in that preview. It was not the best, and they were sort of directing us through as we were playing, saying, "Oh, don't go there because that's buggy, and maybe go here and do that." So they were trying to direct us.
They just do that when it released.
Yeah,
don't go there.
So they were trying to direct us as we played it. I was relatively positive in the preview compared to others. I could tell that the game structurally wasn't the most interesting, but I didn't encounter any bugs because they steered us through it. I could tell it maybe wasn't going to be too great, but I liked the sort of lore implications of the game because they really dug into Tolkien's world and wanted to tell a story of Gollum that linked into Lord of the Rings. And one of the writers I spoke to is a Tolkien scholar and is doing a PhD on Tolkien. And so we had like a really, I mean, nerdy in like the most lovely way. He was such a lovely guy. And we had a great conversation. So my preview of the game was actually quite positive because it was sort of about the lore and the lore implications of it and chatting with him. So I could tell that the game was maybe a bit flawed, but I still sort of had a nice time. I still enjoyed playing it. But then that's the problem sometimes with previews is that it's very controlled. And it gives you, same with Lords of the Fallen when we played it at Gamescom, you know, it's giving you a very specific small section that has been perfected, well, not even perfected necessarily, but has been smoothed over to make it seem as positive as it can be. And that might not necessarily reflect the full game. And I think when Gollum came out, so I didn't play it when it came out, having already previewed it, but yeah, it was a mess. Like it was just, performance was dreadful. I saw people playing it and was like, wow, that performance is not good.
Yeah, I remember watching somebody that was like, oh, we're going to do a Gollum launch stream, and then I tuned in an hour later and they weren't playing it, and they're like, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. But I think even gameplay wise, it wasn't great. It felt quite dated even when I played it.
Wasn't there a thing where you had to mate, help something breed?
You have to make an egg.
And it was with weird...
To hatch a bird, and it's like a weird puzzle that you have to sort of stir things 3 times and do this on the right heat and whatever to make a bird egg of the right colour. That was one thing.
Yeah.
I think just a lot of the platforming was really dodgy, and stealth wasn't working, and like I say, neither of us actually played it, but just from watching other people play it, it was just notoriously, it reviewed badly. Streamers hated it. It was generally considered the worst game of the year by a lot of people. Until
the day before. So yeah, the day before came out. This came out quite recently.
Yeah, it's a bit of a latecomer to this category.
I think we'd already known that we were going to be doing the hottest mess, but we weren't sure of, well, I think we were waiting for a third one, and luckily one came along.
One did come along.
Now, this is a game you have played. Again, these 3 games, I played a little bit of Lords of the Fallen. I didn't really like it. It felt like the performance didn't feel good, but I didn't play the others to compare it. But you did play the day before. What happened?
I did for about 40 minutes, and I made sure that it was under 2 hours so that I could get my Steam refund. Now they've refunded everyone. But this was a massive news story last week. We talked about it on last week's podcast. This game has been coming for a very long time, and a lot of people were very excited about it. Initially, the impressions of it seemed like it was really slick and polished and
everybody
really
was a
cool
bit
from the video.
Though.
But there were suspicions that became bigger and bigger as people noticed that clips from the trailers that they'd released were seemingly very similar / maybe even stolen from other games and spliced together. And everyone was thinking,
no
right,
gameplay. There was literally, they didn't release any gameplay about it or anything until the game released.
So people were very suspicious of it. People thought it was a scam. People accused the developers of this being a scam. They also were accused of like using volunteers and not paying people properly. There was a trademark dispute with a Korean calendar app with the same name called The Day Before. So they had to. So it got taken off Steam.
Calendar.
Well, yeah,
it's only The Day Before.
It got taken off Steam. The game, like there's like a wishlist thing. It became the most wishlisted game on Steam. It was the game loads of people were looking forward to, and it was meant to be this cool-looking zombie MMO and this open world thing. And then the game came out on the same day as the Game Awards
and reached second in the top sellers.
It shot up, had pretty high concurrent players, and it turns out it was awful. It's not an MMO in any kind of way. The performance is shocking. The gameplay is awful. The AI is terrible.
You were standing on a car. I mean, you mentioned it in the last podcast, but
yeah, I sort of read somewhere that if you stand on a car, the zombies can't get you. So I just jumped up, stood in a car, and just stood shooting at zombies, and they just sort of wailed underneath me.
And I think there's a reason that came out during the Game Awards was to kind of maybe hide behind those announcements. But I mean, this
maybe
the fallout from this is so big. I think it kind of superseded a lot of the news from the Game Awards. And in fact, I mean, what happened afterwards? They ended up. I think anybody can now get a refund. They took it off Steam. The company's gone bust. Shut down. Yeah, I mean, Gollum and Lords of the Fallen were pretty bad, but I mean, Daedalic did actually stop. They've stopped making games now, haven't they? They stopped developing games. They just do publishing now.
They are a publisher, and they work with a number of developers, and I think they saw promise in Gollum, and so bumped it up to be their sort of big game that they were doing, and they've sort of decided to go back to publishing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right as well. The Day Before, however, like the company
has gone bust completely, and Steam are doing refunds, and the publisher is in a bind, I think.
Within days. And it's also a bit of a, I don't know, it was registered in Russia, but they had an office, but they were kind of...
Well, the publisher's Russian.
The publisher's Russian. And
they were registered in Singapore.
But apparently that was just
it was an office share.
Yeah.
Co-working space. It wasn't a specific office.
So
it all feels quite dodgy. So when people were saying this feels like a scam, they were kind of right.
And I don't think I don't think they got any of that money, because apparently Steam pays at the end of the month.
Yeah, so I don't think they would have received anything.
And I don't think they will.
No. So it's, I would say, the hottest mess of the year.
I think it's impossible to give it to anyone other than the Day Before.
Lords of the Fallen is perfectly playable and a decent.
You can probably play it now and enjoy it.
You can probably play it now and have a good time.
Yeah.
Gollum is, was a nice idea, and the studio meant well. But the Day Before is a full scam and a mess. So yes.
Day Before, the hottest mess of 2023.
I will say that I think that's our only negative award. So we'll get that out of the way first.
We got that out of the way first, and then we'll cheer up later.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, of all those games, that was the one that literally like shuttered a company, like the game actually fully closed down, and the actual company that made it has gone bust.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is a pretty hot mess.
It is. I will also say that our awards here are very tongue-in-cheek and jokey, so don't take this too seriously.
Well, they're not going to be able to do anything about it.
That's true.
Okay, I've also not like ordered it. I mean, obviously the big game of the year, the community game of the year is the last one, but I haven't really put any other in a kind of meaningful order.
That's fun.
The next one, speaking of not knowing what's next, biggest surprise. See what I did there?
Very nice.
The biggest surprise. This is a good surprise.
Yeah. So this is a game that we didn't know was coming, or that we didn't expect to like and ended up really enjoying. So it sort of just surprised us this year.
Exactly, the biggest surprise. First one, Hi-Fi Rush, Baldur's Gate 3, Cocoon. So they are our three, and probably biggest surprise for three totally different reasons.
Yeah.
Because Hi-Fi Rush was just like, hey, look at this game, doesn't it look great? Was it announced at the Xbox Showcase? Or was it the Summer Games
Yes.
Fest?
It was the Xbox Showcase that they had in, was it March or February?
Yeah, it was a bit early actually.
It was early, and it was sort of setting up the year, and everyone was thinking, okay, well, Starfield's going to be there and Redfall, but we didn't really know much else. And then this incredibly cool looking game came out. It's got this super cool anime aesthetic, or animated graphic novel-y, whatever kind of vibe, cartoony vibe. And it's an action game, but it's also a rhythm game. And immediately
Yeah,
I was like,
boom.
I need this. I need this now. Like, this looks super cool. This is absolutely my kind of game. And they're like, well, it's out now. I was like, what? Went rushing to the Xbox
Yeah.
to download it immediately on Game Pass.
And you reviewed it for Eurogamer.
And I did review it for Eurogamer. It got a recommended. It was before we had scores. But I very nearly gave it an essential because it's brilliant.
I feel like it's one that you could have got away with giving an essential to as well. I think people would
It was
still now they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best game on Xbox that's come out this year.
Yeah, I mean, Redfall could have been in the hottest mess category as well, couldn't it?
Well, maybe. I didn't play it.
No, I
Did
mean,
you?
Starfield could be as well. Yeah, I played it for about. It was a really. It's weird because it's a fast-paced. It was quite a fast-paced, closed kind of zombies are really close to your face or whatever. There's a vampires. Yeah, vampires. And it was 30 FPS, and it also had a bit of delay and lag, but I don't know if that was just your TV. So I kind of turned it off after about half an hour. I didn't enjoy it at all. But whereas Starfield, that was 30 FPS as well, but because it was really, really consistent and it was quite open spaces, it didn't bother me as much, which is weird. But yeah, I mean, Starfield could be the hottest mess as well, but I actually quite enjoyed it.
There you go. So yeah, Hi-Fi Rush just came out of nowhere, basically. And it was just an immediate drop into this super cool game that we didn't know existed, and suddenly we were playing it straight away. And it's great. It's probably one of my favorites from the year. So that really did just come out of nowhere.
How did you get on with it? Because it's weird. I only played the first level. I never actually finished it.
Oh, I finished it all the way through and loved it.
I mean, if
Absolutely
you
loved
reviewed it, I hope so.
Yeah. The final boss was super hard, I remember. It definitely got more difficult later on because it relies a lot more on parrying in order to sort of defeat bosses. Now, I think they actually tweaked this a month or two afterwards, and I haven't gone back to it, but I think they've tweaked the parrying to make it a little easier and a bit more forgiving. But because it's a rhythm game, it basically becomes call and response. So enemies will attack you in a certain rhythm, and then you have to parry back in the same rhythm in time. And it's not always clear what their rhythmic pattern is. Like sometimes it's very obvious a gun's shooting at you, like boom, 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 boom. So you have to go parry, 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 in rhythm. But sometimes with the bosses, there's so many sounds going on, you're trying to listen out for what actually is it that I'm listening for. So sometimes that was quite difficult.
And with you not being very musical, it must have been quite difficult.
How dare. I have a degree, thank you.
So do I.
So
I have one as well.
Oh, I have one in music.
Okay. You were at a choir yesterday.
I was.
But
so yeah,
did you feel that helped you? Because I know your review, you went off on one a bit about music.
Wow.
In a nice way.
In a nice way. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need a sense of rhythm to play this game. It is a rhythm game. Now, it is also very forgiving. And that's what's good about it, is that you don't have to be completely exact with your timing. And there are lots of different accessibility options that help. You have a little cat robot companion who basically sort of flashes in time like a metronome, and you can switch that on and off. So if you need that to help, you can do that. But also the whole world kind of bobs and moves in time. So I kind of sat there tapping my foot as I go. What do you mean?
Is it not giving you like motion sickness?
No. It's really well done.
Okay, good.
So yeah, you need a sense of rhythm, absolutely. But there are a lot of options to help you.
You've seen me dance.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's a game I should play.
Try to dance.
Oh, dear. So you're saying that this is a game I should play after a few tequilas?
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect.
But yeah, it's genuinely Hi-Fi Rush is a brilliant game, but it just came out of nowhere at the start of the year.
So that was a surprise.
It was.
The second one we've got is Baldur's Gate 3. We put this down as biggest surprise because I don't think either of us expected to be playing a D&D-esque campaigny game. In fact, we played our first ever game of D&D this year, didn't we?
We did.
With some gays.
With some queers from across the industry. And it was the gayest D&D ever.
And interestingly enough, my character was a halfling called Big Gus, and he is my character in Baldur's Gate 3 now.
There you go.
So that came along well. Although I haven't done any kind of lines of coke of like snorting up ghosts and things like that.
Let's not go there. That D&D went places. It
should
not be repeated.
Weirdest D&D session. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Natural Six to do their.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I won't say who he was with, but if you get that person that as a guest on the Natural Six, then that's going to be one episode to definitely tune into. But yeah, Baldur's Gate 3, because we actually played, before this came out, we played a little bit of Divinity Original Sin 2,
Yes,
and we
which
liked it.
You've played a fair bit.
I have played a fair bit.
Hadn't touched it.
I don't know actually how many hours I've got in Divinity Original Sin 2, probably like about 20 hours. And I got like nowhere because I kept repeating it. Because every time you leave it alone for a few months, you go, okay, I'm going to just start it again. And the furthest I got was, maybe about 15 hours in. Really enjoyed it. But then Baldur's Gate 3, I'd heard that that people were really looking forward to it. But in my head, Baldur's Gate, I didn't realize Baldur's Gate 3 was like a city in D&D. In my head, Baldur's Gate was something like in Diablo, like a really kind of a level of hell. And it was just going to be monsters and gruesome. And, a little bit like in Astral Chain, the Astral Plane, a little bit like that kind of area. I thought that kind of grim, and it didn't appeal to me in the slightest. And then because I've never played the first two, which I should have done as a kid, because I think I would have absolutely loved it, because I used to love those kind of choose your own adventure books. I used to even buy the books where it's like turn to the next, turn to page whatever, if you would do this. I used to die all the time in those. But yeah, so I would have loved that as a kid, but I never had a gaming PC. So when this came out and I saw that it was getting absolutely rave reviews, like 90 plus, I don't know what it is on Metacritic at the moment, but people losing their shit and saying like it's way better than Divinity Original Sin 2. It's very, very D&D. It's, the progression and the ways that like everyone's playthrough is completely different. I was like, okay, maybe I do need to go and play it. And yeah, what can I say? I'm loving it. What do you think to it? Because you played.
Not as much as you.
No.
I really enjoyed Baldur's Gate. I think it's a brilliant game. I can totally see why people love it and think it's Game of the Year and have fallen for it. I personally haven't played enough of it to be able to say that's my absolute favorite, but I can totally see that people love it. I think both of us love RPGs and love fantasy games. So in that sense, okay, fine, it's kind of something we'd enjoy. But because it's so embedded and so entrenched in D&D, and neither of us had played D&D or knew much about it, I think I got the sense that before it came out, that it was this incredibly sort of nerdy, complicated D&D game.
Cheers.
Which it kind of is.
Yeah.
But it seems to have really garnered mass appeal, which I didn't expect
it.
Ish.
I don't.
So I didn't expect to like it. I didn't expect it to blow up in the way that it has with the wider public, because it's such a specific, complex game. But we both ended up really enjoying it. Just, well, not even despite the D&D aspect, like because of the D&D aspects, all the choices that you get and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's been a surprise just because it's not that it's come out of nowhere. It's been in early access for a long time, and it's definitely built up support and interest. But I think with us two specifically, it's just, I don't think either of us expected to like it, and then actually have really enjoyed our time with it.
Yeah, I love playing it. I've been doing a playthrough on YouTube, which you might have seen, called the Be a Dick playthrough, where whenever I get an option, because they always give you like 4 or 5 options of how to reply to just a simple comment by somebody in the game, and I always pick the most dickish answer. And some highlights, for example, I've mentioned this before on the previous podcast, there's the witch, the old crone, and she's abducted a guy's sister who's there, and she's looking very sad, and you recognize her. And she said, one of the options to say to the sister is like, hey, I recognize you, or hey, your brother's looking for you, or I've met your brother, I know you. And one of them is say that you don't recognize her. And you say that you don't recognize her, and the witch just turns around and goes, you've just got one of those forgettable faces. And she looks really offended and upset. And I don't know, just really funny things like that. But also, if you are a complete dick to people, not murdering them, but like if you're just rude to them, you get some hilarious responses, and it doesn't make your playthrough any worse. Like if you are a dick to someone, there will be probably Lae'zel and Astarion who are your companions. They're kind of bitches themselves. Those will approve of whatever you say.
They're very sassy.
And sometimes you can be an absolute arsehole to people, and they go, yeah, you're right. There was one at the very, very...
You're just very persuasive.
Yeah, there was one at the start where there was a kid who had stolen some guy's wallet, and you're meant to like shout at the kid. I can't remember. I don't know if you were shouting at the kid, or there was something where
I know which bit you mean.
I took the side of the wrong person, of like what appeared to be the wrong person, but it actually turned out to be the one that was in the right. So, and it had had an outcome that people in the chat were saying that they'd never even seen.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And yeah, like I let a child get killed by a snake. just by doing nothing. That was me being a dick. I know there was, I didn't cause any deaths really, but I just was passive. And then that created something later on in the game that was really, really cool and resulted in me getting a very nice amulet. So
Handy.
there's just so many ways that you can go about that game and replay it. And I know there are people that have played it multiple times and just done totally different runs and I'm finding it really complicated and in deep, the combat in it. But there are just so many other classes as well that if I went and did another run through and chose 4 different classes, it would, and went for slightly different options, it would feel like a totally different game.
Mm-hmm. Well, next up is Cocoon. Now, this is a game that I sort of saw in previews and thought, that looks really cool. That looks like my kind of game. So I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But it was still something that only came out this year that we didn't really know too much about. And I sort of expected to like it, and I did really like it. But it didn't... it was still fairly new, I guess. So, it's not something we knew about at the start of the year and we've been, leading towards. I think maybe one of the bigger surprises with that is the fact that you now like it.
Yeah, that's the biggest surprise for me.
Having taken the piss out of me to say that this game is really wanky and pretentious, and why do I like it? And then you finally finished it the other day.
I was like, brilliant. Yeah, it's one of those games that at times can make you feel really stupid because you're stuck on something for ages. And it's weird because I was completely at a brick wall maybe 2 or 3 times in that, being like, I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to do here. No idea whatsoever. And then you put it down for a second, pick it back up, and then you put it down a little bit more and then pick it back up. And you go, oh, wait a minute, can I do this? And then you do it and it makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely a game that can be very, very frustrating. But I think it was just these 2 brick walls that I got to, and I was like, and then when I finally realized what it was, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. And I didn't like that feeling. However, the last half of the game, which is technically supposed to be a bit more difficult, I think it was quite difficult because you had to navigate all these orbs worlds within worlds, and you have multiple ones. I'm not going to give it away too much because I'm guessing we'll probably talk about it in the Game of the Year.
We will. I was going to say, we've got a whole other podcast to talk about all of these games. So
yeah, so Cocoon, I will say I was surprised at, I don't know, it made a lot more sense later on because I think there are some mechanics in the game that you don't know about and you have to kind of, they don't obviously say it, but they don't make it. If there's a mechanic, sometimes it's good to kind of introduce that easily. So to like, hey, you can actually drop your ball or drop your orb on something as you're flying over it. Whereas they didn't. And then it took me ages to realize that I could do that for this one puzzle. Where, instead of spending 25 minutes on it, I could have just done it in a few if I'd known that mechanic was an option, which it didn't explain too clearly. And I mean, the story was quite wanky. We were going to have so we were going to have an award for wankiest game, which Cocoon and Alan Wake were in.
Well, I decided that was too negative, so we're not doing that.
No, Alan Wake would have won that.
It would.
But no, I in the end, I don't know. I think it was because maybe I got a hang of all the mechanics, so I kind of understood what it wanted from me, and I kind of didn't really get stuck at all for the last half of it. But it just felt it just kept feeling rewarding after rewarding after rewarding, and yeah, in the end, for me, it was a surprise. It's the biggest surprise from starting the game to finishing the game.
Nice.
Rather than it being as a whole.
Yeah, that's fair. So, biggest surprise. So this isn't just our favorite of the 3. It is which of these was the biggest surprise, which I think for me is maybe Hi-Fi Rush.
I say Hi-Fi Rush as well.
Because it literally came out of nowhere and was an instant release. And the other 2 are sort of semi-expecting to like, but weren't sure about. And then actually we ended up loving them both.
Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3, it was always going to be good, I feel. Especially
but maybe just not for us.
Yeah, and Baldur's Gate 3 has also been in early access for 3 years?
Yeah, exactly.
And Cocoon, I mean, I really, really like the game. I think it's a great game, but it surprised me how much I ended up liking it. But I think Hi-Fi Rush, despite just playing the first 2 levels, actually, and we'll talk more about that. But yeah, that just came out of nowhere and was like, hey, this game's great.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go back to it.
Hi-Fi Rush, then, is our biggest surprise of 2023.
Because agreeing on things so far, it's not going to last, is it?
Well, I'll wait for the next one.
Right then, the next one is The best new IP, and I'm going to sneeze. There we go. I muted just in time.
Not for me.
No. So the best new IP intellectual property. So the best new, it's like Final Fantasy 16 is not an IP because that's Final Fantasy. So something that's brand new, a world.
It is an IP. It's just part of Final Fantasy.
It's not a new IP.
This
That's
is.
what you mean. Yeah, it's not like a fresh.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is an IP.
Oh yeah. The 16.
So yeah, this is like something that is brand new for this year that we've not seen before. So no sequels, not based on anything else. It's just a brand new thing.
Yeah. Dave the Diver, Hi-Fi Rush, Liza P, and Sea of Stars. We have 4 here.
Nice.
Should we talk about Dave the Diver? You played a bit.
I've played a bit. You've played more than me?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about Dave the Diver is not just a new IP, it's a new genre. It's the searching, survival / sushi restaurant management game.
Sure. I think that's multiple genres spliced together, but okay.
Yeah, fine. That was cool. I played a fair bit of Dave the Diver, and yeah, so if you've not played it, it's a game where you're Dave, who is the diver, and every day you've got 2 sessions you can go diving in the day. It's 2D, pixelated-esque, or like pixel art style. Is it pixel art?
Yes,
it is of kind.
pixel art,
yeah, it's not like Celeste style. It's a bit more detailed than that, but it's definitely pixel art. And you go diving, and you have various weapons that you can use to collect fish or to go fishing. And there are also other things under the water that you can go and get, and collectibles, and uncover mysteries of the deep sea. But at the end of each session, you can use that fish and take it to this sushi restaurant that you are the manager of, and run it. And then there's like this mini game where you have to kind of serve people, create dishes, create the menu. You can even decorate it with the money that you make. So it's a weird mix of genres, but it is incredibly addictive because it's just like, oh, just one more run.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you level up, you can start buying new things, you level up, you have certain like side quests. You get new weapons that you can use to get like slightly bigger fish or rarer fish and go deeper places. So there is a lot to love about that game, and apparently it's like I haven't finished it, but it's about 24 hours long.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly long game. There's a lot of depth to it, and I think individually the genres is sort of stuff we've seen before. Like we've had restaurant management games, we've had survival games, but putting those together and with the presentation that it has, I think is what makes the game original. Things like having the sort of anime style, like chopping a fish and stuff like that in the restaurant, and the way that you've got your app that you use everything from, and there's like a sort of piss take social media in there and things like that. Like there's a lot of really cool little flourishes in it that make it a really complete package, even though it's sort of very different genres put together.
Yeah.
And I think that mix is what makes it quite an original game.
Yeah. I agree. And it reminds me a little bit of Moonlighter, where you have to go in the cave and you go and collect things, and then you go and sell it during the day.
Yep.
So very similar to that kind of thing. But yeah, it's cool. Do you think there's going to be a sequel? I mean, we haven't seen played the whole game, but do you think there'll be anything else in that genre?
I feel like it's a one-off.
Yeah.
I don't know what they could do to expand on that in a sequel, so I don't think it needs that. I think it just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Next one, Hi-Fi Rush. We've spoken about that as the best new IP. I mean, can you think of any other games that are similar? And isn't, like I said, these both are new IPs, but also really quite fun versions on existing genres.
Yeah, because Hi-Fi Rush is an action game mixed with a rhythm game.
Yeah.
So it's like splicing 2 genres together, but with a really cool presentation that is this sort of Saturday morning cartoony kind of vibe, very upbeat and positive and jokey, jovial. It's really good fun. It's like you're playing as a character who basically has an iPod in his chest. That like plays music, and so that's his internal rhythm.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're playing with. And it's this sort of evil corporation that you have to take down, which feels quite prescient today. So yeah, it's good fun. I would love for them to make a sequel, because I think there's such a good basis in the rhythm gameplay. I would love to see them take that into something new.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tango are working on a sequel. I'd love it if they were. So yeah, I think it's a really cool IP that has a lot of potential to become more and become a series.
Interesting.
It's also interesting as well for Tango because they are known for making horror games. So that studio was set up by Shinji Mikami, who created Resident Evil. Now he's since left, but they were working on The Evil Dead, I think.
Not Within.
Evil Within.
Okay.
That's the one. I knew it was something like that. So they made The Evil Within, and they're known for making horror games. And now they've done this that's just completely different.
Yeah.
And it's great to see the studio branching out, doing something different. And I hope that they continue with it.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll do a rhythm horror game.
I mean, I think any rhythm game is already horrifying for you. So
How dare you? I love Thumper is a good rhythm horror game.
that's true.
I can just imagine like a rhythm horror game being one where you have to kind of follow the rhythm and you're really focused, and then all of a sudden something pops up. I think that's what Five Nights at Freddy's is, or something like that, isn't it?
I haven't played that.
Me neither. I just know you click things and then things appear, so maybe not. I don't know.
You just click things. I mean,
I think
that's
that's
most
all-
video games, Ben.
No, well, no, I think not. I think that's it when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, sounds thrilling.
Anyway, speaking of games that are kind of based on existing ones, but this one isn't spliced, Liza P.
Well, yeah, I was going to say Liza P. We've said best new IP. Technically, it's based on Pinocchio.
So disqualified.
So maybe, but it's sort of more than that. It's a very original take on Pinocchio. Now, I don't know the original story of Pinocchio particularly well. From like,
I
the
know he
original
lies and
storybook.
his nose grows, and then there's a cricket, and he becomes a real boy.
Sure. I have watched years ago the Disney film, which obviously with it being Disney is its own take on it.
And we watched half of Guillermo del Toro's.
Oh god, that was boring as hell.
We turned it off after how long?
God,
An hour?
An hour.
I think after
It
about
felt like about 3 hours, and I
Yeah.
looked at the time. I was like, "Oh, we're only halfway through,"
yeah.
and it was only 1 hour. It was awful.
we
Don't
were
watch
like,
it.
let's go to bed.
So I couldn't tell you sort of how close it is to the original story, apart from the fact that I'm pretty sure it's not very close at all. But what's interesting is the fact that it's a Souls-like. So it is a very typical genre. This was Neowitz, I think is the developer name, from Korea, South Korea. So this was that studio wanting to do their own take on a Souls-like.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's very typical of the Souls genre, but they have adapted the Pinocchio story. And I think what's great is the way that they've taken bits of that story and made it relevant to a Souls-like. And you're probably wondering, what happens with his nose? And that is a super weapon that you get. So there is a portrait of P in the sort of hotel central base place, and depending on the choices you make in the game, if you keep lying, then the nose on the portrait grows as opposed to his nose specifically. And then once you've lied enough, you get to the end, and that nose you can take
Pull
off,
out.
and it becomes a weapon, a sword. So there's things like that where it's like they've taken the story of Pinocchio and put it into this like Souls twist. It's a very original take. It's very much its own thing, even though it's based on Pinocchio. Yeah. But what I will say as well is that they've already said there's a sequel coming. So they're doing DLC, and then they've said there's a sequel coming. And
We have seen the
well, now that I've finished it, because I have finally finished Liza P.
I have seen him
and
do it.
Someone had spoiled some bits of it for me, annoyingly, but I've now seen it for myself. And the end of Liza P very obviously sets up the next game.
Yeah, it's not subtle.
It's not subtle. It talks about, and I'll spoil it for you now, so switch off if you don't want to know.
I'll put my hands up like this when we've stopped talking about what it is. So
basically, at the end of Liza P,
I've just realised that people listening on the podcast won't be able to see that.
No, they won't.
Just 20 seconds. Go.
So at the end of Liza P, there are sort of voices that talk about other things happening, and it mentions Dorothy, and I think you see some red shoes.
Yeah, the red shoes, they click.
And they click.
Yeah.
So it's very obvious that they're going for the Wizard of Oz as their next game.
Are they just going for all the things that have run out of licensing, IP laws?
I mean, quite possibly it could be that.
There we go.
There we go. That was the end. So it's very obvious that they are going to be doing a sequel based on another story, and it feels like that's connected to this universe. So as much as Lies of P is based on Pinocchio, I think what they're trying to make is a bigger universe with other stories that they'll bring in that's part of a bigger thing. And in that sense, that actually makes it quite a cool IP because they're linking these stories together into something very original.
I need to go and speak to Great Ormond Street Hospital and get that Peter Pan license.
You joke.
I would.
You should totally do that.
Yeah, I think they're in talks for something else, but
Fine.
okay. But next one then, Sea of Stars. I'm sure we'll be talking about this.
So yeah, we have 4 nominations for this.
I mean, Lies of P is probably disqualified. So
do you think?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to be very, very strict.
Wow.
Goodbye, Lies of P.
That's harsh.
Well, that game is going to be in our top 10 game of the year.
Is it?
Yes. Well, I love it.
Well.
I've not played a Souls like that long since. I think that might be the longest. Well, no, actually, I think I played Neo longer, but I really loved it. I loved it. But we'll talk about that later.
Sure, we'll talk about that later. Well, the last one is Sea of Stars, which is a brand new RPG, retro style RPG that is a sort of best of 90s RPGs. So it is or very heavily influenced by Chrono Trigger and also Mario RPG.
Which you played?
Yes, I played both of those. 2 very, very good games. But it also takes inspiration from other RPGs of the 90s and puts it all together into this brand new setting, brand new story. It is absolutely one of my favorite games of the year, which doesn't mean that it's best new IP. But it is a brilliant game. It's now that I'm talking about it, yes, it's maybe not the most original in terms of IP because it does sort of take ideas from other places.
Which is is there another one that has, like, for example, like when you are fighting, if you press buttons, so it's like an RPG, a turn-based one, but it also involves kind of hidden buttons at the right time as well. Are there others like that?
Yeah, so the way it works in combat is that it's turn-based, but then there are button prompts that if you time it correctly, you do extra damage, or also you can defend yourself. Now, that was first done, I believe, in Mario RPG, which is why that's a big influence on it. But the Mario RPG since then, so Paper Mario and onwards, they all take that idea and run with it. And I'm sure there are other games that have also taken that as well. Bug Fables is a more recent one that does that, which is very Paper Mario inspired. So it's not the only one to do that, but yeah, it's taken that idea. It's a really cool world. It's a really cool story. It's these 2 warriors that you play as. One is of the sun and one is of the moon, and they have corresponding magic, and they have to travel the world on this big adventure as these warriors. And I won't say much more because I know you haven't played it, so I don't want to spoil it.
I played the first bit. I got to the pirate town, which is the demo area I got to. So yeah, that's it.
So there are loads of other areas that are sort of different takes on your typical RPGs type areas, but it's got a really cool story. It gets quite emotional. It's really, really well done. I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Okay, best new IP. It's like, what do we count as the best new IP? Is it like the best game of these, or is it the best world that they've created, or the best?
So I think that it's the one that is the most original and the one that has the most potential to continue as an IP, maybe. And for me, like Dave the Diver is, I think, a one-off, which is cool, but I don't see them making a sequel. Well, Sea of Stars, they're doing some DLC, but then I think that will be it. Whereas Hi-Fi Rush, I think, is maybe the most original of the 3, and I can see them making sequels of, potentially.
See, I could see more being done with Dave the Diver because they've just announced the DLC, the crossover with Dredge. So it seems like they're quite interested in extending it. Like, Hi-Fi Rush hasn't had DLC, neither has Sea of Stars. And the fact that they're using Dredge.
Sea of Stars has DLC coming.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, they've already said that.
Oh, I didn't notice that. But yeah, I like the fact that they're bringing in a Dredge, which is a game that... So we have a category called Best Old Game, which is the game that we should have played the previous year, but we couldn't include because, we played it in January or whatever. I'm going to be playing Dredge over the next few weeks, I think, off stream. And I've got a feeling that might, at some point I'll be like, oh shit, I should have played this last year because it's actually really good and I love it. But the fact that, Dredge is getting, Dave the Diver is getting Dredge DLC makes me think, I don't know, it just seems, is it just a happy coincidence that these two C games came out and they had this agreement?
Yes.
You don't think they're going to progress any further than that?
No. I think they've both done very well, but I think, maybe this is just a thing of the industry, is that I think that indie games tend to be more one-offs, whereas big AAAs will invest in a series. So you have one God of War, okay, cool, well, let's make this a trilogy and put loads of money into it, whereas an indie game will make a cool project and be like, cool, that was original, now we want to go and make something else
Is Dave the Diver an indie?
Well, that's a whole other question. Let's not get into that.
It's weird because it reminds me a little bit of Grow Home, which was the alien thing where you had to kind of climb to... I can't remember. It's a long time ago, but you had these weird controls. It was a little bit like Gang Beasts kind of controls. We had to climb up to this top of this leaf or whatever and end up going home. We were an alien, if I remember rightly. Mm-hmm. But it was actually owned by Ubisoft, or it was published by Ubisoft, but it was like an indie-esque, or like a small game that kind of appeared out of nowhere that was really, really good. And Dave the Diver, it's like the people that do like FIFA Mobile. Is it Nexon?
I can't remember exactly.
I think
but it's a very big Asian publisher.
Yeah, from, I think... Oh, I'm not going to say, just in case I get it wrong. Nexon. They do... Actually, I should have just typed in Dave the Diver.
Yes.
But yeah, they do like Dungeon Fighter, Maple Story, Kart Rider. I have to make sure that this is the right one. I'm not speaking rubbish. But they've... EA Sports FC Mobile, Dave the Diver, that's right. Mint Rocket are, I think, the developers.
Yes.
So, it reminds me a little bit like that, where, that got a sequel.
What did?
Grow Home.
Oh.
I'm fine for Hi-Fi Rush because I do think, based on what you've said, that there's going to be more in that universe.
Well, no, I don't know.
But
I have no idea if there's going to be more Hi-Fi Rush.
But would you be surprised?
Would I be surprised if there was more?
Yeah.
No, because I think it deserves to have more. I've got no idea what the studio's doing. But I can see the potential of it. And the fact that it is... So Tango Gameworks is part of Bethesda, which obviously is now owned by Microsoft.
Yeah.
And this game has done so well for them that I can absolutely see Microsoft saying, please make another one because we need some funding.
And also, as well, it is like both Dave the Diver and Hi-Fi Rush are kind of mixes of two genres, but Dave the Diver is very much, these are two separate parts of the game, whereas Hi-Fi Rush has them at the same time. It's action
it's
and
very
rhythm.
integrated.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy with Hi-Fi Rush.
Let's do it then. Wow, Hi-Fi Rush with 2 wins.
Yeah.
Did not expect that.
Me neither. I need to go and finish it, don't I?
You do.
It needs to be on... Is it on like anything else other than Xbox?
No, as I just said, Tango is owned by Bethesda, owned by Microsoft. It ain't coming anywhere else.
Okay.
It is on Steam, actually. Sorry.
Oh, so I can play on my Steam Deck now.
It's on Steam. Yeah, but it's on Game Pass. It's part of... It's free.
Is it free? If it's really cheap maybe I'll add it to my wish list.
Okay.
Because it was like a 1 hour for a level.
Yes, and there's like 9-10 levels, I think.
Yeah, I'm not paying 26 quid for it though. There's lots of DLC apparently. Oh, upgrade, original, boss play costume, loads of costume packs.
Like costume packs, yeah.
Screw that. Okay. Very good.
Nice.
Next one. Congratulations. Hi-Fi Rush, best new IP. Next one is Catchiest Song. And this is where we get screwed a bit because I'm going to play up to 5 seconds.
Oh, have you got them ready? Okay, nice.
Well, I don't, but I will. Okay, the first one is Baldur's Gate 3's Down by the River. That song that is like, you're just looking at that word earlier. Yeah, but also, do you get it anywhere else?
I think it's
the music.
Theme, so I think the melody comes back later.
The melody is like all the time. Yeah. I remember, like, I think it's in the camp as well. You hear it, just like the odd little bit. But the other one is Sea of Stars Level Up music. It is really good. You mentioned that you really liked it, and then
It's like my favorite thing in that game.
You mentioned you really liked it, and then I was lying in bed one day, and I think you had it on really loud in the living room, like they're playing the game, and I was like, "Oh, that'll be what he's talking about."
Yeah.
I didn't even know you were leveling up. I just heard it.
Just in jet. Oh, we'll get to it.
And then the third one, Mario Odyssey, Piranha Plant.
Yeah. So
which I don't know if that's actually called. I think it's Piranha Plant Melody or something.
I can't remember the name of the level, but there is a level in.
Wait.
Oh, you put Mario Odyssey. You mean Mario Wonder?
Mario Wonder.
Wow.
The other one.
Mario Wonder. You collect the Wonder Seeds and strange things happen.
Wonder Seeds, yeah.
And there is a level quite early on where you collect the Wonder Seed, and all of the Piranha Plants start coming out, and the whole thing becomes this little sort of barbershop march of singing Piranha Plants, and it is adorable, and is probably the best level in the game.
It is this one, right? Mario Wonder. And this is as you're playing the game, as you're playing the level.
Yeah. And the whole level is is moving and all in time. And what's cool as well is that you can kill the piranha plants with your fire and whatever. And when you do that, those voices drop out. So actually you can completely get rid of all the singing if you just kill all the piranha plants, which is slightly evil because they're quite cute when they sing.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
So yeah, that is a very cute little song.
And it is we are going for Catchiest Song. It is 100% a contender.
Yes.
And now here is Down by the River. If I get to that part of it. Oh. Let's try and get to like halfway. I'm gonna have to like listen to this off. Then so you talk. Why is this song really good?
Well, it's very beautifully sung. I'm not sure who sings it actually, but it's very beautifully sung. And it's this lovely ballad that, is played in the intro or the title screen to the game, and comes, the melody and singing is used throughout the game as well. It's the one bit of music from Baldur's Gate that I always remember because you always hear it everywhere. But it's really beautiful.
This bit. Oh, it is really good.
Yeah. It's a really beautiful song.
I'd like to go and see a Baldur's Gate 3 concert. I bet that they'll do one.
Well, there is one, Ben.
Is there?
Yes, we didn't get tickets because they sold out instantly.
But yeah, that's Down by the River. There's a lyrics video one as well. That's a spoiler alert, so I won't look at that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Wait, is this the same one?
Yes.
But it's I think this is the bit at the beginning, isn't it? On the new game screen.
Yeah.
And it's like
instrumentation. Oh, I love it.
This bit. It's very Enya, isn't it?
Please do not say that in a derogatory way.
No,
Enya is one of my favorite artists.
No, it's not actually Enya. It's just kind of Irishy.
Let's say folky.
Folky.
Okay.
Irishy. Okay, then we've got the Sea of Stars. Level Up music, which is already got its own thing, and they've got an extended version. This one. Okay.
That's literally it. It just does that on repeat because it's when you level up, and again, this is stolen from Mario RPG. You level up, but then you can choose like one of three stats to boost further. So do you want a bit more health or a bit more attack or whatever? And
you spend a while thinking about it.
You have to spend a while thinking about it and deciding, well, how do I want to level up my character? And that is the music that's playing constantly, and it's literally like 8 bars that just repeats constantly. So that's. It's a bop, but it's catchy because it's just 8 bars that repeats. The music throughout Sea of Stars is brilliant. It's Eric Brown is the composer, and he basically composes chiptune music, which is chiptune music is music that's
like that.
That's like that. That is composed on old computer chips to give you that like 8-bit, 16-bit vibe. And he actually went back to the Chrono Trigger soundtrack. I know this because I interviewed him, which you can go and read on Eurogamer, because we talked about how the music creates a sense of nostalgia, and it's through this sort of chiptune vibe. But he went back to the Chrono Trigger soundtrack and looked up what synths and what sounds and chiptune sounds were used specifically in that, and then recreated them now to make new music. So that's part of the reason why it sounds so 90s and so nostalgic, because it sounds so familiar and so similar to those old games, but also has like extra layers to it. And it's he grew up playing Sonic and loves the Sonic games and the Sonic music.
So you were best friends.
His favorite RPG is Final Fantasy VII. So I mean, shout out to you, Eric, legend. He has great taste, but he loved the sort of like funky vibe of Sonic music, which I also love. So he's sort of bringing this like funky, pixely, chiptuney vibe. Every piece of music in that game is incredibly catchy, and you can listen to the soundtrack on streaming services now. It's all up there.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good. That level up music is the catchiest bit of all, but that's partly because you hear it so often.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why. I mean, if we're picking, well, do you have a favorite before we go further?
The one that gets stuck in my head the most is Down by the River.
Yeah.
Because as well, you hear the different like medley of it, because it is the theme of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes.
So that's the one that's like, I just mentioned Catchiest Song and I walked in there and got a drink and was going, Down by the River.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would be my choice.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think the Mario Wonder song is a really cute moment. I don't think it's necessarily the catchiest song.
Yeah, I forgot.
But it's very cute because it's gibberish.
Yeah,
because it doesn't have lyrics. It's like the Animal Crossing songs of KK Slider, just going.
Yeah, they are amazing, but they're I mean, I can't.
You can't sing it back.
Just that one.
I mean, yeah, there's that one. Sea of Stars is I think the catchiest of the three, but it's also 8 bars of music repeated, so that's why it's catchy. Yeah. And I think if I had to pick my favorite soundtrack of the year across everything, I'd put Sea of Stars up there for me.
Yeah.
But I think Down by the River as a complete song is actually genuinely a really beautiful piece of music. It's catchy as hell.
Yeah.
But it's a really beautiful piece of music, and I think it really sets up the atmosphere of Baldur's Gate in a way that it just completely draws you in. And that's part of the reason, we said earlier it was one of our biggest surprises. We didn't know if we were going to like it. Literally the title screen with that music, and I was like, I'm in. Like it really set the tone, set the mood.
It's catchy but like classy at the same time. It's catchy but not
catchy
cheap.
But classy.
Catchy but not cheap.
Okay, sure.
Should we go for that?
Down by the River.
Down by the river. You have to do it in that voice.
Yeah. I need to look up the singer because she has a beautiful voice.
That's what we say.
And just like the harp and the harpsichord and just the strings, it's beautiful.
BG3 singer is no, I can't type. Oh bollocks! What have I? Down by the Tiver. No. BF3. No, I cannot. I can't type. I got fat fingers. Bound by the river. Bandai the River. It is Vesela Delcheva. What did I say? Vesela Delcheva, who is she's not really in anything else. I mean, her IMDb says, Baldur's Gate 3, 9.8 on Metacritic. Rio 2.
Is that animated film?
The making of the Bulgarian dubbing. So she's a Bulgarian.
Oh, she's a Bulgarian singer then.
Sounds like it.
Actually, that makes sense because I think the composer's Bulgarian.
That rings a bell.
I think. And Deborah Wild, who we interviewed, is also Bulgarian because I remember I saw a TikTok.
Yes.
Or maybe she talked about it on the podcast as well, when she found out that the composer or someone involved was also Bulgarian, and she got really excited about it. So that makes sense, actually, that the singer is Bulgarian.
And she's an opera singer.
Of course she is. That's why she has a stunning voice.
Yeah. She's performing The Lost Princess. Do you know The Lost Princess?
I don't.
She also performed Mamma Mia this year.
Oh.
As,
well, that's you then.
Oh, yeah. As a soprano or something. I don't know. Yeah, she's in The Lost, and Shrek the Musical. Okay, we'll have her.
Nice.
Great singer. Congratulations.
GG.
Down by the river. Next one is the best boss fight. We have Titan in Final Fantasy 16, the Puppet King, Liza P, and the Ibis, and it's not for that reason, the Ibis series Cell 240 in Armored Core. You will have to tell me, I've only played... Wait, the Puppet... I didn't face... No, the Puppet King you did, but the Titan Final Fantasy 16 is the only one of these that I've fought.
Okay. Well, let's start with that then. What did you think about it?
Oh, it was epic. It was very, very epic. It's like, it is a huge titanic boss fight. I mean, the icons and the icon battles in Final Fantasy 16 are kind of one of the best bits about that game. And Titan just goes places. It turns into some kind of like a racing game at one point when you're sliding along the lines and you're having to run and turning left and right as things are coming towards you. There's a bit where you're fighting while falling down. What are you falling down inside it or something? Or
you're sort of falling down inside the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and then there's bits where you're like way above the earth on its arms or on, I can't remember exactly, but it is just the most epically scaled boss fights.
Yeah. I think the icon battles of 16 are some of the biggest moments.
Yeah.
And as they said beforehand, they're all based on different genres. So like one's like that's its own thing.
Yeah.
One is a sort of on-rail shooter. Another is almost like a wrestling match that they were going for.
Yeah, there's like
so each one has its own vibe, which is really cool. I think the Titan one's definitely the most epic. I also read somewhere recently that they got help from Platinum on the boss battles.
That makes sense.
So I think that's why, because Titan to me feels like a Bayonetta boss.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it cool. Yeah.
One, yeah.
So it definitely has that vibe. I really like that battle. I think it's really, really cool. Really cool.
I do. What about the Puppet King then, Liza P?
So the Puppet King is, I think for me, is the boss that stands out the most in Liza P. I think across the game, there are some really cool bosses. Really cool. It has a great style because you are fighting puppets. Like the bosses are puppets. And I really like the design of the bosses, the way that they incorporate sort of puppet and mechanical elements. And later on, there are sort of weird creature elements that join in as well. And they have really cool designs. But I think the Puppet King stands out for me. It's got a cool design as it is. It's got this, but also the setting. You battle it in this opera house. So you have to go through the opera house first, which is very classical and ornate and grand. Which is lovely, and then you go through into the main theatre area, which is where you battle this puppet, like in the stalls, basically, with chairs knocked over, and bit by bit it all sets on flames, so the whole room is on flames around you, on fire, in flames. That's what I meant.
It reminds me a bit of that one in Nier Automata. You know, when you go to the village and the fairgrounds.
There is an opera singer one in that as well.
Yeah.
So this character, it has like the tragedy comedy masks on its face that flip around, and it's a really tricky boss. It's one of those bosses that a lot of people struggle with, but once you get over that, it's like a real turning point in the game. So it's quite a climactic moment. Another reason it sticks in the mind for me is because I played against that boss at Gamescom. So I got to play at Gamescom. I got to interview the developers, and so the PR, he's called Lewis. He was helping me and was like, right, if you want to get through to the boss, this is how you run through the level. So he showed me how to go through the level, unlock the shortcut, and then run straight to the boss. And I did it a few times, and loads of people around me were also trying to do this boss. So we're all trying to do it, and there are 2 phases to this boss as well, as there are in a lot of bosses of Liza P. So it starts as this big mechanical robot puppet thing, and then underneath it is this human enemy with this incredible sort of scythe sword thing that you later get yourself. And I, on like maybe my second or third go, managed to defeat the puppet, and was like, oh my god, I did it, this is amazing. And then the second phase kicked in, which I wasn't expecting, and I was like, oh damn, and he completely kicked my ass. And I tried, and the director of the game was watching me and was like, nice. You're doing really well. Like, you've got a really good strategy here. Because having played the demo previously that was released to the public, I understood that it's very much about parrying and the timing
building
of parrying.
Up that kind of
groggy status.
The
they
groggy
call it.
status, yeah.
So I sort of got the hang of that and knew, and a lot of people were going in thinking it was like Dark Souls and trying to block and, hadn't played it. So I had that down already. So he was like, you're doing really well. And obviously that put me off. I ended up failing. So I didn't do this boss at the time. And I think I hadn't experimented with builds. And it's also when you're playing a demo sort of in isolation, you haven't worked up to it. You haven't, decided on your build and all that
it's like,
stuff.
I think Prince of Persia at WAS, nobody could beat the big boss there. But I'm pretty sure they put you at a low level against quite a high level boss just to show it off. It's kind of
exactly
just to show off.
So the boss is definitely difficult. A lot of people, I then played it on stream, and a lot of people were like, okay, this boss is the one that gave me a lot of trouble. And I think I did it on like the third go. And but I think by that point, as I was just saying, I'd built up my build and I decided on the weapons I liked. And it turns out it's really weak to electric. So if you just keep using your electric damage, you can completely wipe the floor with it. Actually, I don't think it was. Maybe it was third go. I don't know. It was pretty quick, basically, that I managed to do it. And I surprised myself because I did not anticipate it. And considering I didn't beat it at Gamescom, and so then when the game came out, I remembered that boss and was like, right, when I get to that opera house, I'm determined to beat that boss. And I finally did. And so it felt very satisfying. So, I mean, is it the best designed boss fight? Maybe not. I think it's my favorite of the game, but it also was sort of just meaningful because I finally got to do it on stream and beat the boss, which I'd been wanting to do for a long time. So in that sense, it sort of meant a lot to me.
Brilliant. And then the third one is one that you have also, the Ibis.
Right. So Armored Core is a very difficult game.
How many boss fights are in that game?
A lot. Well, there's a boss in pretty much every mission.
Jeez.
But a lot of those missions are quite short, and it might be that you're against another Armored Core. So let's I'm going to make a very lazy comparison with Dark Souls. Because it's from Software, but it's not a Soulsborne game, and I will stand by that. So in the Souls games, you have, or say Bloodborne, for instance, you've got like massive creatures and monsters that you fight, which are like big bosses. But some of the bosses are more human-sized enemies that are sort of just you against each other, and you've got similar movesets. So Armored Core sort of works similarly, where there are huge hulking bosses that are big robots and extravagant set pieces and whatever. But a lot of the bosses that you fight are just other Armored Cores. So they count as bosses because it's at the end of the game and they're probably named, but they're much smaller and it's kind of almost like a one-on-one fight. And that's what the multiplayer in the game is like, because it's you against other people online.
Yeah.
So there are loads of bosses, but a lot of them are just Armored Cores, which are the name of the robots. But then there are huge robots that you go and kill. Like there's this spider thing that took me ages.
I remember.
The first level has this helicopter that a lot of people struggle on, which it's difficult because it forces you to learn the mechanics. Once you know the mechanics, it's actually quite easy. But it just forces you to learn that in a like hitting a brick wall kind of way until you get through. There are a lot of other great bosses. There's a massive worm thing that's really cool. There's a lot of really cool bosses in it. The Ibis is the most difficult one, and it sits somewhere in between what I was just talking about, because it's essentially another Armored Core, but it's also a massive set piece that you fight this boss, and it's incredibly quick. And most of the bosses are just like big lumbering robots that take a while to kill, but some of them are often quite slow and lumbering, and you just have to dodge around them and understand the moveset. This Ibis is just incredibly quick, and it's shooting tons of lasers at you. You have to be so precise with your dodges. You have to really experiment with different builds to try and work out what's going to be best, which took me a long time. That boss had me absolutely raging. It's already a very difficult game, and that boss is the most difficult boss.
I was so happy when you finished.
I'm pretty sure anyone who's played that game will agree with me that is the most difficult boss.
I was so happy when you finished that game because I've never seen you get so angry.
I was screaming.
Yeah. We've really plastered the wall though.
Yeah. I got so close on so many attempts, but it took me like most of a day, I think, to get through it. It was really tough.
And did you find that fun?
Yeah.
We're different.
Literally, when I finally did it, it was just the relief that flooded through me. And after that, it was a pretty clear run to the end of the game.
Okay.
Because it's like 3 or 4 levels from the end. So it's like the big climactic point, basically. It's like the real tough battle. It's basically the Melania of Armored Core. And it feels like Melania as well, in that it's a very sort of fast enemy, which has sort of the equivalent of swords, basically, and shoots everything to you in red, which feels very Melania-esque. So I feel like it's somewhat inspired by Melania, and that's why it's a really tricky boss. Is it the best boss fight of the year? I don't know. It's definitely the one that was most difficult, and I felt a lot of relief when I beat. The Puppet King, I also felt very satisfied once I beat it. I think out of the 3, Titan is probably the most fun, and it's more of a set piece and more of a moment within that game. Maybe I also.
Oh dear! Didn't give me enough warning there.
Also need to sneeze. Sorry, that was bubbling for a while.
Lovely.
So I think Titan is maybe the most memorable.
Yeah,
and the
because
most
it's like best.
iconic.
Oh,
of
it's
the 3.
because it's the best boss fight. It sounds like the Ibis one is just there as. Is it the best? Is it the best designed?
I mean, it's.
Is it? Or is it just
Armored
difficult?
Core has great combat. That is very precise and very carefully managed and balanced, and that boss is the ultimate test of your skills in that game.
Yeah.
So it makes it a really cool boss in that sense.
It's interesting because it's like if you played the Titan boss fight on super easy mode, it would still feel really epic. Whereas the Ibis one, if that had a super easy mode, I'm guessing it wouldn't feel.
Maybe not as much, but
I mean that's a different because they're a different.
that's a
kind
whole
of
other
boss fights.
conversation about should Souls
Well,
or From Software games have easy modes.
And then there's the Puppet King with your opera, but is that more of a personal?
For me, yeah, that's probably a bit more personal. For me, getting my own back at long last. So I think it's Titan.
Yeah, I'm down for giving Titan that. Sure. Like I said, that's the only one I played, so you're the best one to kind of
We'll go with Titan.
choose. Right then.
It's very epic.
It is a really epic boss fight, and like the music as well, like the rock, because that's when the rock music kicks in, isn't it?
Like that's one of the things I love about 16 and the music is that it's all sort of operatic and classical and whatever, and then suddenly like it just turns into like heavy metal, and I'm
Is
like,
it?
yes.
Who did 16's music? Was it Soken?
Yeah, Soken.
Oh, that makes sense. Then.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Because
14 is
14
very
does
much,
the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you do a primal battle, and it's suddenly against it's like rock music blaring, and it's very that vibe. I love it.
Okay, the next one is the sexiest voice.
Oh,
And this is the sexiest voice, not the sexiest person who does it.
yeah.
First one is Ben Starr as Clive Rosfield in Final Fantasy 16.
Mm-hmm.
And also a character in Warframe coming up.
Yeah.
There's Amelia Tyler as the narrator
In
in Baldur's Gate 3. And Chris Hackney as Rauru. Is that how you spell it?
I say Roru, but
Or Roru?
Yeah.
Rauru? Do they not
in
say
Tears
it
of
in
the
there?
Kingdom, I
Let
think
me
they,
just
they
double
probably do.
check that it's Amelia Tyler and not Taylor. Because I don't want to get.
Tyler.
It is Tyler, okay. Now, Chris Hackney.
Yeah,
little
you said
fact.
you've got a story here.
Well, it's not really a story.
Oh.
But Chris Hackney is also Dimitri in Three Houses.
Oh,
There you go.
nice. So Nintendo using the same people.
Yes.
Very nice. I didn't know that.
Now you do.
Oh, Dimitri's a great character.
He's my favorite.
There you
Well,
go.
he's my favorite of the 3 leaders.
Now, we could have very easily filled this category with 3 characters from Final Fantasy 16. We also could have easily filled it with 3 characters from Baldur's Gate 3. But we have decided to just have one from those games, one each. And so Roru was my extra choice. The Ben Starr and Amelia Tyler were both nominated by the community very
Yes.
heavily. People were very, very excited to nominate those 2.
I think those 2 would have been my choice as well.
Yeah. So I've thrown in Roru as an extra just because I think the character's sexy. And it's a sort of... he's a strange, beastly, deer, like long-eared kind of guy.
Sure.
But there's something hot about him, and he's got a lovely voice.
I think I have met him, but briefly.
Mm. I think for me, it's maybe more of the character than the voice specific. I mean, Chris Hackney does a great job. It's more just it's an odd choice for the furries out in the world.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
So I think, are we not having that?
Well, I think also judging by the community, and we will take the community into consideration. I think Ben and Amelia were very strongly nominated.
I also feel like Amelia was snubbed at the Game Awards by not being included, because for the best performance. Because Amelia really makes Baldur's Gate 3. Like her voice and the way she is very essential in how she talks. She's like Nigella when she talks about, when she's introducing and explaining what is happening in a very, like, she's pure D&D, when it starts, she's like the dungeon master.
Yeah, she's the narrator, but it is narrating all the lines, and it's almost like the dungeon master setting the tone of the game.
And it's like the character looks at you scared. You feel a sense of shiver inside. How do you react? And it's very DM.
And I guess, like, I don't want to diminish the other voice actors because they all do a wonderful, wonderful job at their specific characters and making those characters feel real. But I'm sure I read somewhere that Amelia did like so many different versions and takes of the same lines with different characterization, so that depending on the choices that you make, her voice will change and react to what you're doing, which I think is super clever.
Yeah.
And really helps to set the scene and the tone of your personal playthrough of it. So it's almost like she's playing one character that's like almost split into multiple characters depending on what's going on. And I think she does a great job of that. And I think there's definitely a kind of Dom mommy vibe to her, kind of judging you for your actions as she speaks.
I didn't get that, but I'm sure and I think we can read into that.
By all means.
Dom mummy, is there other issues there?
Probably, yes. So yeah, I think she does a phenomenal job in that game.
Yeah. No, she really, really does. It would not be the same without her.
No.
I'm trying to think of other Baldur's Gate 3 characters that are sexy.
Like Neil Newbon as Astarion. I mean, that's a sexy voice.
Very much.
It's a sexy voice. I think maybe the sexiest of the other characters.
I don't know if he's sexy. I don't find him very sexy in the game. So the character isn't.
The character, okay.
The voice is just very, very posh like that. He's gone full on very posh.
Yeah, but he does that and then looks down at you at the same time, and I'm like, yes.
Okay.
I think he's got a very sensual voice.
Yeah, it's essential. It's not for me sexy.
Okay.
Don't do that.
Noted.
I want to go a bit common. And then, I mean, the other one, Ben Starr as Clive. Now, this is Sexy's voice, not Sexy's character or actor.
He's a very attractive man. But yes, no, Clive does have a very sexy voice.
Are we not going to be biased just because we had him on the podcast?
No, of course not. Now, I mean, I also found Sid very sexy in the game, which you disagree with very strongly.
I vetoed.
And clearly I like a northern accent.
Clearly.
So you were not a fan because of his work in The Office?
Yeah, he is Finchy, who is a sex pest in The Office, and his voice is exactly the same there as it is in all the others as well. So it's like it's just his natural voice. Whereas Ben, lovely guy, but when he talks to you normally, it's not a sexy voice. It's just his normal voice.
Well, for some people it might be.
It might be, but it depends what he's saying. Maybe
it's not his Clive voice.
He's not putting it on. Whereas Finchy, I mean, he does put it on a bit actually. Chris, what's his name again? Not Chris Finch. That's his character.
Ralph Ineson.
Yeah, Ralph Ineson. He is. Yeah, he obviously does put it on very, very deep when he's talking like that. But he's got like a really husky voice, so he does technically have a sexy voice. I just can't get past the fact that what it looks like.
Well, that's your personal taste.
Exactly, 100%.
Ben does a great job, and I think we also have to give him props for making Clive sexy. Because when
Clive's character was sexy, though.
When people said that, Final Fantasy, the lead character is called Clive, like I got so much shtick at work for that, of like, oh my god, you're playing this game with Clive as the main character, lol, you and your Final Fantasy, and I'm like, but he's a great character, and Ben does a great job of voicing,
and it shows just how a really powerful character and a really strong one like that can make a name not sound ridiculous. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, Cloud. Just the name.
Cloud is a very cool name.
It's not a cool name.
It's very
It's
cool.
not cool. Before Final Fantasy VII, you said, "Oh my, the main character is called Cloud." Like, that's a stupid
Cloud
name.
Strife.
I mean, Squall is also that's just
Squall Lionheart.
Squall is just a noise that a bird makes.
That's a squawk.
It's the same thing.
No, Squall's a great name.
What is in 6? What's the lead character in 6?
There's not a lead character in 6. That is a great.
I mean, also,
Ben.
oh, okay. I haven't played it yet. 9, Zidane.
Well, you could say Terra in 6.
Terra.
Tera.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same as...
Because that's the character you play as at the beginning, but technically it is an ensemble piece.
Okay. And also, 9 is
Zidane.
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 Zidane. It's like Zinedine Zidane.
Some people say Zidane.
Well, if there's a remake happening, I guess we'll have fully voiced actors and find out what it is. And
10
then
is Tidus.
Tidus.
I also say Tidus.
Tidus does... I mean, that's a fine name. That's just a name.
No, it's a silly name and no one knows how to pronounce it.
Yeah, that's true.
He's annoying.
12
is...
what's his name?
Varn.
The twink. I like that name, actually.
I don't like Varn.
No?
No.
He's a twink, though.
13 has Lightning.
As the name.
She's cool.
Oh, Lightning Returns.
Her name is Lightning, yes.
So Lightning Returns is...
It's her. She returns.
Oh, I thought it was just a... Yeah. And then 15 was...
the boy band leader.
Oh my God, what's his name?
Noctis.
Noctis. I quite like that one as well.
Yeah, that's all right. It's original.
But yeah, I mean, they've not been at the kind of... Apart from like
I strongly
Alphino,
disagree. I think the names are wonderful.
Whereas in 14, they're great. Alphino, Thancred, Alice. Yeah. They're quite good names.
Clive is just a very old-fashioned British name.
I just think of Clive Tilsley.
Yeah.
The football guy.
Yeah, it's a very old-fashioned name.
But now I don't laugh when I hear the word Clive.
No, I really don't. And that's genuinely partly because of Ben's performance in this character that I think is great and sexy and really well done.
I'd be interested to see when it's like names registered, if anybody's called Clive this year. Because I think it was like 0 the last few years.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
And now, maybe someone will go, do you know what? We're bringing Clive back. Nice.
Yeah. And Jill. I mean, Jill's also a old lady
Clive
name.
and Jill. And obviously Sid.
Clive and Jill. It sounds like Coronation Street characters from like the 1980s.
They joked about that.
What?
Both the actors, Ben and Susanna, I'm going to interview them. They talked about, they used to joke that it was like Clive and Jill from Corrie.
Oh, really?
When they were like in the...
And there's like another character, Karen. The real Yorkshire Karen. I know it's spelled differently, but it's pronounced Karen.
Yeah, she's very Yorkshire. Very strong.
And Sid. I mean, Sid is also an old man's name.
But that's been going for a long time. And it's also spelled with a C, not an S.
Yes.
My granddad was called Sid.
Oh. My granddad was called Walter and Jeff.
Wow.
No, sorry, it wasn't. It was Jack.
Oh my God.
No.
Walter, that's an amazing name.
Walter was the name of his car. That was named after his dad. So there was up there.
So somewhere in your family there was a Walter.
Oh yeah, no, it was my grandpa's father, but the Walter was the name of his... He died when I was like 11. So...
Wow.
But yeah, sorry. No, getting confused with my grandfather and his car.
Excellent. But which of these is the
Jack and
sexiest? Which one gave you the feeling?
Amelia.
I think so too.
Don't tell Ben. Ben gets sexiest...
Clive is a very sexy character, I think.
Yeah, Clive gets sexiest character.
I have taken... I can't... I actually
How many
looked this up and I
butt pics
can't
do you
remember. No. It was... Well, I mean, there are some of those. I was going through the screenshots that I've taken from Final Fantasy 16, and I've got like over a gig's worth of screenshots, I think, from that game, which is hundreds of screenshots. The majority of them are of Clive because he's a very sexy character.
He's also the main character.
Ben does a great job of voicing said sexy character.
I think the sexiest character in 16 for me was
also Benedicta. She was very sensual.
Oh, she was.
Yeah.
I liked, it's in the, before you go to Titan, there's like a little town nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy at the end of a walkway. I can't remember his name, but I remember being like, "Oh, that's my type."
Wow. Random NPC.
No, I think he might be. I don't know if it's the one that Shy voices, or it might be another person, but it's in that area. Shy is the guy. I can't remember his name, but he has a turban on his head.
Yes. I've also forgotten the character
But
name.
he's also very attractive.
Yes.
So it's a hot game.
It's a very hot game. There's a lot of attractive people. Same with Baldur's Gate 3, a lot of attractive people.
Monsters.
But I think for the controlling, judgmental nature,
And the way she just talks like this, everything. She's like the goo oozes out of the puss hole.
I mean, she puts her all into that.
She really does.
Yeah.
She's very like ASMR with her voice.
I would listen to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because it creeps me out. But that's just my thing.
Yeah. Amelia Tyler, sexiest voice.
Cool. I know a lot of people will have wanted Ben, but this is the voice. Hopefully you will understand. Should we have a little clip from her speaking?
Do it.
Hopefully it won't be a spoiler. Can you imagine?
God, don't do that.
The voice.
Well, if you look her up, she did outtakes as the narrator.
Okay.
Which was very clever. Very fun.
Narrator outtakes.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's have a look. Wait. Is this just her talking? No, this is her talking, and I don't want to.
Okay.
But there's. Wait, you talk for a second.
Okay, well, so how are we all doing? Hope you're all enjoying the podcast.
Tell me your favorite bit of her.
Just honestly, just this sort of general judgmental tone is what I appreciate from her. I don't think I'm far enough in to have a favorite moment from her, but I think just her vibe from what I've had already is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
She is, and I think she's underappreciated as well.
So,
I think somebody's streaming it.
try to get close.
Thul's fur bristles. He wants to jump, wants to bite. A low growl builds in his throat as his eyes track the movement of your tail. It's agitating him.
Well, that's not.
See, like that is just a perfect example.
So turned on.
I know it's talking about your tail, and I'm guessing only certain characters have a tail.
Well, yeah,
so like that's
exactly.
how very unique the voices
absolutely.
are. But she would be great to get on the podcast.
She would.
Okay, congratulations, Amelia Tyler. I'm very happy with that. Then the next one, Puckris, though. I mean, he was Dimitri, who would have got the sexiest voice. He was only second to Sylvain in Three Houses for me as attractive.
Oh.
Sylvain, you know him, the redhead? Bit of an attitude, but you win him over and sleep with him.
Yeah, see, in that game, I went with the one gay character in order to have a gay relationship, and then I was very disappointed.
Oh, yeah, you can't actually have... Yeah, I think...
No, I wanted to have relations with Dimitri, and I wasn't able to. But I also need to do a second playthrough, and I might choose to be a female character so that I can do that.
Sleep with all the male
So I
students.
can shag all the men.
I remember when the game first came out and people were like, so it's a game where you sleep... You're a teacher and you sleep with the students.
Correct.
It's like, yeah, but play it first because you'll realize that they're
Moving
the
on.
same age as you. Okay, we are down to the best old game.
So this is basically an award for the game that did not come out this year, but we have played for the first time this year and really enjoyed. Yeah. So it's like, it could be an old classic that we finally got to, or something we missed from last year, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, one of these games would probably be Game of the Year. It's just they didn't come out this year. They came out years ago, potentially.
Yes. So
This is us catching up.
Yeah, the best old game. The one that we wanted to mention and say that we've had a really good time with, even though it doesn't fit in this year.
Yeah.
And I think, it's one that usually we play in January. Because Frog Detective was, for me, the year before.
Right.
And then this January just gone. This January of 2023, I played another game that's on this list. And I'm sure I'll play Dredge in the next few weeks and love that.
It's always the way of, it gets to end of the year and everyone's doing Game of the Year and it's suddenly like, oh, I didn't play that. Oh, I missed out on that one. So then in January, you're like, right, I'm going to catch up on what I missed. And you're suddenly realizing, oh, that game's really good. We should have included that in Game of the Year and we didn't. So look out for that. I guess next month.
Yeah, yeah. Because luckily, nothing really good is coming out in January or like the first half of February.
Yeah, it's relatively quiet.
So the next 6 weeks or so, we are
On catch up. Well,
Oof,
slash research for me anyway.
yeah.
But
And
best old game.
old game, and this is our penultimate award before the top 10.
Oh, okay.
Citizen Sleeper, which we both played in January, and was my most played. Was it? No,
It was both of our most played Xbox games.
That's right.
Yep.
Final Fantasy VII, the original, and Bloodborne. So 3 incredible games.
These are like 3 of the best games ever made. Like 3 of my favorite games ever.
Genuinely, like Citizen Sleeper is top 5 game ever for me.
Yeah. So Citizen Sleeper was the game that both of us played in January because we missed it last year. It was a sort of indie hit. Didn't do well. I think it did well. I mean, there's a sequel coming, so it
Yes,
must
that
have
was
done pretty
so
well.
drilled. And you got to meet the creator, Gareth.
Yes, they are lovely. So really, really enjoyed Citizen Sleeper. Missed out on it when it came out last year, and then it was on all these Game of the Year lists. And I think both of us thought, oh, we should play this, or maybe I think I did. So I played it on Xbox, and I played the entire thing in a day, from start to finish.
And you
was
came to
just
bed at like 2 a.m.
and was like, "This is incredible! You have to play this game." And you were like, "Oh, maybe."
Well, I think I remember being like, it sounds like my kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's quite futuristic, and I love a bit of sci-fi, but I also love a not really, really long game. It also had stunning music. Like wasn't that like in your
my
Spotify?
my number one artist of the year was the composer of the Citizen Sleeper soundtrack because I think mainly in January I played the game and then I was listening to the soundtrack constantly and like sleeping to it. It's perfect sleep music.
It's brilliant.
It's beautiful music, all very sort of electronic, slightly mournful, really melodic. It's really beautiful music. The game as a whole, just to sort of explain it, if you haven't played it.
This is it, by the way. Shall I play a sec?
Lots of bleeps and boops.
Yes.
But
Sorry, I just want to play it again.
really
now.
beautiful.
Because I haven't played the DLC, so I should.
You should. So the game basically it's as you said, it's futuristic, it's sci-fi. It is essentially cyberpunk in that it's you against corporations.
Yeah.
And you are playing as a sleeper who is an android. I'm trying to remember it all now.
Yeah,
it's like you're a
since
human
January.
that's had your
Memory
sort of put into an android that then is called a sleeper.
Wake up, sleeper.
Because you've been asleep, as your body has, and then you are on this space station, and you have to help out and survive because your body can only last so long before you die, and so you have to try and top up your energy whilst helping people and surviving, doing odd jobs.
It's not difficult.
No, it ends up not being that difficult, but it feels like it is,
Yeah.
which is what's important.
And it's got the like dice rolls in. Well, you're gonna.
So in terms of gameplay, it's based on tabletop gameplay where you have to roll the dice that determines your chances of being successful at whatever things you want to do during that day. And so all the dice are rolled at the beginning of that day, and then you can select what you put them into. So if there's something that you really need to get done, you need a guarantee that it's done, you want to use your highest number for that and things like that.
Yeah, I can't remember it exactly, but weren't the bits where it's like to get this you need a 2 or a 1, and to get this, so it's not necessarily that you want to roll the highest.
Not
because
always.
there's some way you need a 1 to get to do one action with somebody, and
And there's there's hacking. There's like you against big corporates going undercover, like revolutionary sort of themes.
Can we talk about the representation in it as well? It's just like every possibility you could imagine in there. It's like you will be seen in that game.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the full queer spectrum.
This character is non-binary, right?
Yeah. There's like racial diversity, which is great. So yeah, and it's not even just that, but it's the characters and the way that they're written that is so good that just makes them feel like real people. And so then when you have to make choices that either help or hinder people, it's a genuine tough decision because you want to help everyone.
And there are lots of different endings.
Loads of endings, yeah.
Yeah.
I went back and like restarted just before the end in order to make different decisions to
interesting.
like get different.
Well, I did the one. It made me want to save a child and like Not that it sounds weird. That's especially
I
when
mean,
I
that
work
would be
for
a
children's
rarity.
charity. No, I work for a children's charity. That's literally my job. But it's to like live happily ever after in the company of a person and his kid. And I'm like, that is. I was like, oh, but like this kid's quite fun and like it's. I don't know. The way that they show their characters and make their characters likable. And the ones that aren't not unlikable,
Yep.
they just do a really good job at that. But I'm really intrigued, to play the DLC.
So the DLC came out this year. Now, we're not including DLC in Game of the Year conversations.
We should have had best DLC because there's a few games.
Well, there are, and we could have considered that. But
next year.
The DLC is all about refugees. Now, it kind of sets that up a little bit in the base game. But it's about refugees that are from another space colony and station, and they come to join the space station. You have to decide how to help them. And there's a character who is a complete Tory, and quite annoying.
Suella.
And who's sort of very anti immigration, basically. And so when I interviewed Gareth, we talked about the sort of relevance of the DLC and the story as a whole to today and today's society. And I don't think they intended it to be a political game specifically, but it feels political.
I mean, it's very, very political, but do you mean like not necessarily like a reflection of a specific...
Yeah, it's not commenting on today specifically, but the themes and the ideas are definitely relevant to what we are going through today.
Yeah.
And that's what the best sci-fi and the best cyberpunk is. And that's why for me, this is very cyberpunk, because cyberpunk as a genre sort of grew up in the 80s mainly. I mean, 70s and 80s. I think there were novels and stuff like that. And a lot of it was like fear of technology and hence cyber and hacking and the power of computers and robots taking over the world and stuff like that. And they were real fears in the 80s as technology was growing. And there's also a lot of cyberpunk is sort of fetishizing Japan and the East. Because that also Japan was growing as a power, especially as a technological power, and that's why the game Cyberpunk is full of like and well, actually Blade Runner did it, but Blade Runner, Harrison Ford is always eating noodles, and there's lots of Asian representation and sort of big neon signs of geishas and all that sort of stuff, and Cyberpunk the game completely steals that. So there's a lot of that stuff, but it's very set in the 80s. So we have it now, but it feels like it's an 80s kind of thing. But it was meant to be Cyberpunk as like of its time, like a reflection of today. Like in The Matrix is also Cyberpunk, but that feels a lot more 90s. Whereas this is Cyberpunk, but reflecting today's values.
Like the gender kind of and the way that people just completely like the majority are androgynous, and it's very much reflective of today's society. It's like the next evolution of cyberpunk, which is anyway, that's
in short, Citizen Sleeper is fucking brilliant.
And it would have been our game of the year last year, I think. 100%. I would have made it.
You would have made it, would you?
Was it Elden Ring?
Elden Ring last year, and I think you can't not have Elden Ring as a game of the year.
I would have gone for Citizen Sleeper.
But Citizen Sleeper would have been a very close second.
It would have been game of the year. To me, I'd have put Elden Ring like 7th, and then you'd have put it first, and then you'd have put Citizen Sleeper second, and I would have put it first. So then balanced out, it would have been first.
Yeah, sure. We'll see what happens later. I'm going to let you talk about Final Fantasy VII, because Final Fantasy VII is one of my absolute favorite games ever, and I've already waxed lyrical about it, and I'm very excited about Rebirth next year. Remake was our game of the year a few years ago. And I'm planning on playing the original again over Christmas because I want to have it fresh in my mind, ready for Rebirth. But I've chatted on this podcast enough about this. So this is a game that you've been playing recently.
But I think this might be disqualified.
Oh.
Because I haven't actually played anything new that I haven't played a few years ago. So a few years ago, I started playing it because Remake came out and I wanted to play the beginning of it. So I wanted to do the Midgar section before Remake came out so that I could kind of compare it, which I did in very short space of time. And then I continued with a little bit and I went up to about, I think I was looking for the Temple of the Ancients, which won't mean anything to anybody that considers that a spoiler, so that's good. And then this time I've been playing because we went on holiday to Cape Verde and we took our Switches with us and the Steam Decks or my Steam Deck and played it a fair bit on there, but I never actually got past that. I'm kind of close, I think, to where I was before.
You are.
But I'm not at that point. So technically I haven't played anything new this year from Final Fantasy VII.
Have you enjoyed it more than when you played it previously?
No.
Oh.
I really enjoyed it last time and I really enjoyed it this time as well. I'm looking forward to playing a lot more and to kind of delving into it over Christmas because that will be my Christmas game. And so, I mean, yeah, it's great. I am playing it with like cheats enabled. So I'm whizzing through. I haven't turned off encounters. So I'm not, so I'm getting like the full experience of encounters. Like the only time I turn off encounters is if I'm like, I want to go and check something on the other side of the map quickly, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be there where I need to go. But I want to, rather than look up online, I'd quite like to just go and search for it myself. So I'll turn off encounters and quickly go over there. And 9 times out of 10, it's nothing there, so I don't come back. But no, I am really, really enjoying it. I think taking my time with it as well is helping, because I think those games, they do feel a lot more epic when you're not kind of whizzing through it in a whole week,
which I will be doing. So.
Exactly. So I think, yeah, games like, for example, Final Fantasy X, I played over about 6 months, and like to me, that's one of the reasons I think why I love it so much, because it just felt like when I got to that end, I was a mess.
Yeah. That's how I felt with Ocarina of Time when I played that as a kid, because it took me 4 years on and off.
Wow.
And 3 of those were me being stuck on the water temple. But I would play it for like a little bit and be like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm annoyed. And I'd put it down and I wouldn't go back to it for ages. So then when I finally finished it after 4 years, I bawled over the credits.
Oh, well, I told you about 10. What I got stuck on a bit where you're on the beach, I believe, and Sin is attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really tricky. And for some reason in my head, I didn't want to grind, or I don't know what, but it was taking a long time to grind up. And as a kid, I wasn't very good at games. And don't say it. Don't say it. And eventually got a cheat cartridge and finished it.
You cheated your way through it.
Yeah.
How dare
it finished it.
Shocking.
But the reason but I put it down for ages, and then we had a religious education class at high school all about sin. And every time she started talking about sin, I was like, oh, fuck, I love Final Fantasy X. That was great. And so I went home, and I think I found a cheat cartridge, or I had a cheat cartridge from a few months ago that had been, well, like it was like one of those CDs that you put in, and then it takes it, and then you take it out and switch it over. And so then I completed it with that and just adored it. Although there is one bit where you are Kamari, that's 10. You fight his cousin, I think, or his brother, and his brother...
Ronsu?
Yeah.
Ronso?
Oh, God, you've got a better memory than me.
Yeah, that's the tribe name.
But his brother, cousin, whatever?
Brother, I think, yeah.
His brother, the HP of his brother is dependent on your HP. So if you're playing... Yeah, if you're playing with...
So if you grind...
Yeah, it's going to be tough. But if you're playing with someone who's got unlimited health, you can't beat him. And I spent like about 30 minutes trying to beat him. I was like, this is impossible. So I went and then got into the game again. So I turned it off. I reloaded the save without the cheats enabled. Hit him in one go.
Wow.
Killed him in one hit. Because my attack, I think, must have been really strong. And his health was shit like mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a worrying part at one point, because I'm like, am I going to now be stuck this close to the end? But yeah, no. So
anyway,
Final Fantasy 7 or 10 we're talking about?
7.
But 7's awesome, but it's just I have not played anything new. But I'm going to play more of it, so maybe that'll be next year's.
Okay. So thinking about it, I have a similar story with Bloodborne, in that I played Bloodborne previously before this year, but I only got like a third of the way through it. And at first I really struggled with it because I found it difficult. Then I had a second run where I started it again, and I got about a third of the way through it, and I liked it, but I then got stuck on a boss. And I decided this year, right, I am going to finally finish this game because I know I'm going to love it. I have enjoyed what I've played. I just needed to play it again from the beginning to get into it. So I did it on stream, and I did have a lot of help from people in the chat, which was lovely, and I was very happy to have that help. More just directing in the right places and making sure I don't miss things.
Not backseating.
There are No, not backseating unless I asked for it, but it's more just like, especially when you've already done things, you want to get through it a bit quicker, but also if it's like, hey, you might have missed this the first time, there's a really cool thing down here. Oh, thanks for directing me. That's cool. I'm down for that. So I basically played the entirety with the DLC this year, and I hadn't done that before. So that was new. And it's shot up as like one of my favorite games ever. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm still torn as to whether it's my favorite of the FromSoft Soulsborne games.
Wow. What's your favorite at the moment?
Well, I don't know necessarily.
Ring?
Like, I mean, Elden Ring is sort of the best of all the other ones. I have a bit of a soft spot for Demon Souls as well, even though I know a lot of people don't like it that much.
People love the PS5 version.
I think, like, I mean, this is a whole other conversation. I love fantasy and dark, twisted fantasy, and I love magic. I usually play as magic characters, and that's not what Bloodborne is. So I can do more of that in like Elden Ring, for instance, and choose to be whatever kind of mage and do what I want in that game. And it's very dark fantasy, cool. Bloodborne is more Cthulhu, twisted, Lovecraft, that's the word, Lovecraftian sort of Victorian Gothic horror, which is still very cool, but my personal preference would be very closely fantasy over that. So in terms
30
of
FPS, isn't it?
I mean, that doesn't bother me as much. But Bloodborne doesn't really have it does have some magic abilities, but you can't play as a mage in the same way you can as the other Souls games. But that forces you to do melee combat. And the melee combat in Bloodborne, I think, is the best melee combat in any game. It just feels so good. And once you get the hang of using the gun at the last minute to basically use that as a parry and then use that to stab people, like, just the mechanics of that feel so good. And there's a boss in the DLC, I want to say Maria is her name, maybe, who is like, it took me quite a few goes, but it just felt so good because it's, as I was saying earlier, it's not you against a big monster, it's you against another human-sized enemy. So it feels very evenly matched in terms of ability.
That's Maria.
It is Maria.
The Rakuyo.
Sure.
Oh, no, it's the weapon that she uses called the Rakuyo.
Oh, is it Lady Maria?
Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower.
That's the one. That I think is one of the best bosses in that game. It's super cool. Just Bloodborne as a whole, it's so fucking good. Like it
needs a remake, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't need a remake.
A remaster.
It just needs. I mean, I don't think it even needs a 60 FPS mode, but it's just incredible style, incredible melee combat. So good. And I had such a fun time playing it on stream that really's got me into playing Souls games on stream, and I'm going to keep doing more
you
of
have
those.
to. People love that.
So I loved Bloodborne. But I guess, similarly to you with 7, I had already dipped into it, so it wasn't brand new to me. I'm just glad that I finally got to finish it this year. And I did play it from start to finish. So I'm sort of inclined to go with Citizen Sleeper as the game that we both loved last year and didn't have a chance to recognize last year.
Yeah.
And now we have the opportunity to do that. So
I completely agree.
there we go.
Yeah, and we saw Gareth at WASD, and I was like, introduce me, because you've already spoken to them, and you wouldn't.
They were very busy.
Yeah, we didn't see them
popular.
again. We didn't see them again. I'm just going to quickly pause for 1 second, and we're back freshly peed. So, congratulations to Citizen Sleeper, the best old game. Right then, our final award that we decide on before the Community Game of the Year gets announced, and I'll give the full points lowdown. It'll be very Eurovision. Well, it won't be Eurovision like that, but no, people don't give 12 points, actually. They gave 10.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We'll get there.
Yeah. The best
Remaster
is the one. Yes, because not remake, because we're going to include remake. So remade games are going to be included in the Game of the Year contenders.
They are. So remakes are eligible, remasters are not.
And that's just our decision.
As an example, Metroid Prime Remastered.
Should we just go and say what they are?
Well, yeah. Well, just to say, like something like Resident Evil 4 Remake is like a from the ground up new game.
Yes.
So that's not that's eligible for Game of the Year. But a remaster is not, being one of these 3.
Yeah, so the first one is the Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters, the Metroid Prime, I need to click Remastered, type Remastered, and Super Mario RPG Remaster? What's it called? So it's Metroid Prime Remastered.
Yeah.
And Super Mario RPG is just that, right?
I think it's just Super Mario RPG. I don't think they've put remastered on it, Nintendo.
So with these, again, similar to a lot of them, we're going to rely on you because you have finished... Well, you finished 2 of them, and you finished Metroid Prime and Super Mario RPG. I have finished the first Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, and I'm halfway through the second, whereas you've You've completed the first 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So, I guess just to explain it, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters are Final Fantasy 1 to 6, which originally came out on the NES and the SNES, and it's those remastered so that they are consistent across them all. It's still in pixel style, hence they're pixel remastered. But it's more like the NES ones are more in like a SNES graphic kind of style. But it's giving you the sort of ultimate version of each of these games. It has
also
a lot of modern conveniences like
Yeah.
turning off encounters and giving you boosts for extra XP.
I do really like that. And I wish more games would maybe do that as an option, as have like you can get 2. I think one of them is you can get half the XP, but then also you can get like double XP and quadruple XP. It goes up to.
So you can really set how you want the difficulty to be.
Yeah.
Because one of the trickiest things with these older games is the high encounter rate. So if you can turn that off, or if you want to lower it and have more XP or whatever, you can do that.
Or if you don't want to grind.
They also have reorchestrated music. So, and I think you can choose between the old and new. So if you want the old pixel music or chiptune music, you can have that. Or you can have new orchestrated music, which is really beautiful.
And you can also change the text style as well. You can have the modern one, which I believe when these came out, or maybe it was just the ports from like the SNES versions, when they went on Steam, they had like the new text, which did not fit in at all. Whereas this one, you can kind of go and have the classic font, which I think these are just the ultimate way to play these now.
Yeah. Now, I will just point out that this is not the first time that they've been released.
Oh, yeah.
Because they came out this year on Switch and PlayStation, but they were previously released on mobile and Steam.
Were all of them
They
out?
were released individually, that you could buy them all, and then it became a collection. And then the collection of all of them is what's been released this year on Switch and PlayStation. So it's only this year that we have got to them. And
So maybe it should be disqualified.
I'm really enjoying playing them. It's given me a chance to tick off games that I've never played before. I've never played 1 and 2 before now, and it's been really nice to understand the origins of the series and see where they've come from. So I've really enjoyed that, and I'm yet to play 5, but that is the last one that I need to play from the collection that I haven't yet played. So I'm really enjoying that, but I guess they're not necessarily brand new this year.
No, and we can disqualify those. I mean, I wasn't expecting this one to win this category. Speaking of, Metroid Prime Remastered, Ed, what did you think to that?
Okay, so Metroid Prime is one of my favorite ever games.
I just say we put this category here just so Ed didn't kind of strong arm Metroid Prime Remastered to top of the Game of the Year list.
Wow. It's one of the best games ever made. It's phenomenal. It originally came out on the GameCube, and it was the first 3D Metroid game. So Metroid was a NES game originally, and the sequel was Game Boy, and then the next one was Super Metroid on the SNES, which is also one of the best games ever. And when people talk about Metroidvanias, what they're talking about is Super Metroid, basically, mixed with Castlevania, because Castlevania stole it from Super Metroid. But it was Super Metroid that really set the structure of collecting certain items to allow you to explore further and all that sort of stuff that we all now know and love in these sorts of games. But it was Super Metroid that really cemented that. And then the N64 came out, and Mario got transformed into 3D with Mario 64, and Zelda got transformed into 3D with Ocarina of Time. But it didn't happen for Metroid because they didn't really know what to do with it. And Metroid also didn't sell that well in Japan. It was popular in America more than it was in Japan, I believe. So Nintendo sort of didn't really know what to do with it, and they ended up farming it out to Retro Studios, which was a new studio in America who had a number of different projects they were working on, and they were given Metroid Prime by Nintendo and amongst these other projects, and they ended up ditching all of the other ones just to work on Metroid.
Nice.
And I think actually production or development had a lot of crunch and sad times. But the product at the end of it just was phenomenal. And I remember at the time, there was all this debate about whether Metroid could work in first person, because Metroid is an adventure game, and they put it into first person, and people thought, oh god, it's a shooter. And like Halo was massive on the Xbox at this time, and we'd had GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, and people are thinking, and Half-Life.
Yeah.
So people are thinking, oh God, is Metroid going to become a first-person shooter? Because yes, there is shooting in the older games, but they are very much exploration adventure games more than anything. And so there was all this debate about whether it could work, but they made it so cool the way that you get behind the visor of Samus.
Yeah.
And so it has all these visor effects that were super cool. So like when the rain comes, you can see the rain streaming down the screen, or if you go through smoke, it steams up. And then there are different visors you get, so like X-ray visor and stuff like that, that changes the screen. So it really puts you in the place of Samus.
Yeah.
And the other controversy was it was a shooting game in first person, but it didn't use twin stick controls. So that became popular with Halo in the Xbox, was that you'd use twin sticks. And now we do that all the time with shooting games. But with Metroid, it was all done with one stick, and then you use a different button to aim, which became second nature having played it. But to me, having now since played shooting games in first person with twin sticks, I sort of always wanted to go back and play Metroid Prime as a twin stick shooter, because I sort of feel
Is that what it is, the remaster?
So the remaster.
Oh, can I just, before we go,
Okay.
I've had a look at the company Retro Studios. I guess you know all the things that they brought out.
What, since this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mario Kart 7. But they're also the ones working on Metroid Prime 4. Was that originally someone else and then they've brought it back to them?
Okay. So
Because I know that got kind of
so they made
on.
Metroid Prime 1.
Because they also did the remastered one as well.
Then they made Metroid Prime 2.
They did.
And
Let's test
then-
your knowledge.
Then they made Metroid Prime. Well, I don't know the order especially. Then they made Metroid. I'm only talking about Metroid here.
Let's guess, yeah.
Then they made Metroid Prime 3, and
No.
that was a launch game for the
You
Wii.
missed Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS.
Whatever. That game was shit. No one played it.
The Metroid Prime trilogy.
They made Metroid Prime 3 for the Wii, and that was cool because it was the first game that really used the Wii remote to like aim in first person.
Oh.
And what they then did, because that was really good, I mean, the game wasn't as good as the others, but the controls came out well. They then released Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Wii. I wasn't sure if
2009.
it was Wii U. On the Wii, which basically added those same controls to Metroid Prime 1 and 2.
Unless it came out
Then,
there as well.
on the Wii, we had Metroid...
Yeah, just Wii.
Metroid Other M.
They didn't do that.
No, they didn't do that. That was made by Bandai Namco. And they made a more traditional third-person Metroid game with the Wii remote. And it had I haven't played it, and I really want to, but apparently it's terrible, but I just want to see what it's like. So you know what the Wii remote looks like and how you hold it.
I've got one.
Right?
I've got two in there.
With this, you held it horizontally, so you used the control pad, like the
okay,
D-pad,
yeah.
to like move, and there were only two
Like
buttons.
a good old SNES controller.
And then when you want to shoot things, well, you can shoot like that. But then if you want to shoot the screen, if you turned it to aim at the screen, it would change the first person. And so you're switching between third and first person all the time.
Interesting.
And it had a really weird story that basically fucked up Samus and made her annoying, from what I hear. So basically, that was really badly received. And so then Nintendo's decided, right, we need to make a new Metroid game for the Switch. And they started making Metroid Prime 4. And I think it was another developer, and I'm not sure who it was, but they were doing I think it might actually be Bandai Namco again. And they decided they were doing such a shit job that they moved it and gave it back to Retro. Because since Metroid Prime 3, Retro Studios were then given Donkey Kong. So they have
Donkey
now
Kong
made Donkey Kong Returned and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Well, you are very good at this.
I know my shit.
know
So
your
they
shit,
made those and became the Donkey Kong studio. And then Nintendo have gone, no, we need you to make Metroid Prime 4, which still hasn't come out, but it's Retro Studios. It's probably going to be on Switch too. So that's where we're at with Metroid. Until then, they have done Metroid Prime remastered. And the hope is that they're going to do 2 and 3 as well. Now, I imagine what they probably did was put all 3 on the Switch as a test for Metroid 4 and then thought, fuck it, let's just release them, is what I guess and presume probably happened somewhere. So Metroid Prime Remastered, they finally have added twin stick controls. So you can play it as a twin stick shooter, which immediately to me just felt so intuitive, even though it's not what the original controls were. And you can play it with the original as well. You can also play it with motion controls, like on the Wii, if you want to. But playing it as a twin stick shooter, I just whipped through it. It felt so seamless. and it looks incredible. It's genuinely one of the best looking games on the Switch, I would say. And that's like, it's not even just they took the original textures and upscaled them. I think they literally rebuilt all the visuals so that it fit on the Switch.
Yeah.
And it's got new details in the world, new lighting, all this kind of stuff. So it, you know, when people say with a remaster, it looks like how you imagine it. And if you go back to the original, it's like it's standard definition and it looks a bit blocky and crap. But at the time, it looked amazing. This remaster literally looks how I imagined it at the time. But
how tricky is it?
So much better.
Are there difficulty levels?
I think you unlock a hard mode when you finish it.
I don't care about that. But...
It's not hard.
Okay.
It's not a particularly difficult game. It's difficult in terms of navigating and solving puzzles more than it is like combat difficulty.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll give it a go. If only I had a physical version of it. Do you?
No, I don't.
Oh.
It's digital. But for me this year, like, look, Metro Prime came out when I was, I think, 15, and I loved it when it came out on the GameCube. I had a brilliant time playing it then. And so playing it again remastered, I whipped through it in about 8 hours in a weekend and just had the best time because I knew what to do. I knew where I was going. It just all the memories came flooding back to me, and it was just this nostalgia hit. I was like, this is incredible. I've had the best time. So I loved it.
Good. And I watched the final boss.
You did.
That kicked your ass a few times.
It did not kick my ass. I kicked its ass. Thank you.
Third time lucky.
You are misremembering. So the last one here is Super Mario RPG. Now,
the Cape Verde game.
This was the Cape Verde game for me. Now, this is, I guess, interesting because it's, for me, brand new. And for a lot of people in Europe, it's brand new because this originally came out on the SNES. It was Square Soft, as they were known at the time, rather than Square Enix.
Does it come up with Squaresoft at all on the screen when you load it
I
up?
think it probably did. I can't quite remember.
Does it now?
No,
Oh, did it
that's
in
what
like
I
this
mean.
one?
I can't quite remember. But it was Squaresoft, and they were tasked by Nintendo to turn Mario into an RPG. And after this, Nintendo then used the basis of this to go off and make Paper Mario, which is still probably better. Thousand Year Door on GameCube. Phenomenal game. Also being remastered in 2024.
Great.
However, this was very late in the life cycle of the SNES, so it wasn't released in Europe. It was released in Japan, it was released in America, but it wasn't released in Europe. Now, it has since been available in Europe on the Wii, on the Virtual Console, but for a lot of people, this is going to be the first time they play it, myself included. And what they've done for the Switch version is completely overhaul all the graphics. So it's still the same perspective, which is this isometric top-down view, and the characters still have this little weird squishy 3D feel to them, which they had originally. So it's very in keeping with the original style, but completely upscaled all the graphics. And they've redone the music as well. They reorchestrated it. I think there were a few other small changes they've made. There are new triple threat moves, which are new, which make combat even easier. I really, really, really enjoyed playing it. I had a great time playing it. It's one of my favorite things of the year. I'm not going to include it in Game of the Year because it is a remaster technically, but it was
remade from the ground up though, kind of.
Well, sort of.
But they haven't changed too much.
It's not a remake in the way that Resident Evil is. It's like it's a remaster.
But Resident Evil's got a freaking VR mode.
Yeah. But it was brand new to me, so I don't have the sense of like, okay, I played this when I was like with Metroid. I played this when I was younger, and I can see the difference. This is just to me, it's a brand new game. But I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I had a great time. I mean, my favorite of the three, my favorite would be Metroid Prime, and a big part of that is nostalgia. But it is genuinely one of the best games ever made.
I'm happy for that because I think Pixel remasters we can disqualify just the fact that they've come out separately previously, and also I mean they've done a great job of it. But I'd be down to actually play Metroid Prime remastered if I didn't have to pay for it.
So you can play it on my Switch.
Maybe I'll play it on your Switch. Can you add another user and then play? I think if it's your primary console, I can.
I need to switch that around, but yes, I think you can.
Well, maybe I will give that a go at some point.
Well, I feel like I've just ranted for 20 minutes, but
I liked it.
If my rant has persuaded you to play Metroid Prime, then my work is done.
Yeah. Okay. Metroid Prime Remastered is the best remaster, and that is the final one of our kind of major awards there, as we now approach the Community Game of the Year.
Nice.
And I'm going to give you...
Shall we do a quick rundown of the awards before
I was going to do that before the end, but I can do that now. Just random things. Okay. So...
Just to remind ourselves, of what we've done.
No, that'll be the top 10. Hottest mess was The Day Before. I mean, could it have been anything else?
No.
Biggest surprise was Hi-Fi Rush for the sudden drop and a great game that
Absolutely.
that you loved, and I loved what I played of it. The best new IP, Hi-Fi Rush. Not only was it the biggest surprise, but it was the best new IP.
It was a very original little game. I loved it.
I've got such a bad memory that when I was doing that, I didn't even like think that we'd just given Hi-Fi Rush another award. At least I'm doing these separately, and I'm not being influenced. The catchiest song is "Down by the River" in Baldur's Gate 3. The best boss fight was Titan in Final Fantasy 16, and the sexiest voice was Amelia Tyler as the narrator. That's not her voice. In Baldur's Gate 3. Yep. The best old game, Citizen Sleeper. Great game. If you haven't played it, go and play it right now.
Yeah, okay.
Like, genuinely, go and play it. It's amazing. And just the art style as well. We didn't even really talk too much about the art style of that.
Oh, amazing.
And, we've lost my headphone a bit. And then the best remaster was Metroid Prime Remastered. It's even got remastered in the name.
It does.
And so did Final Fantasy. But yeah, I think that is a very good awards list.
Nice. So now we have the Community Game of the Year, which has been voted by the community, all of the viewers and listeners. Now you put together a Google form, and everybody voted on nominations.
Do you have the long list?
Oh god!
Because if you had that, and then we can talk about the ones we won't. Don't read them in order. I suppose they're going to be in order. What I'll do is let me go and read out the 10 that were in a random order. Okay.
Well, no, hang on. I've got it up if you want it.
Sorry? I know I've got the top 10 here.
Okay. Well, yeah, so everyone voted. There were loads of games. And then we took the ones with the most votes, or the 10 with the most votes.
Yeah.
And we have now, or we did ask all of you to vote from that top 10 to put them in an order.
And the games in no particular order, just to say what, so you know what to expect.
Okay.
Just come in. Hi-Fi Rush, the double award-winning Hi-Fi Rush. Baldur's Gate 3.
The double award winning.
It's double award-winning as well, Baldur's Gate 3. Super Mario Wonder. Final Fantasy 16. Lethal Company. Still not sure what that is. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Dave the Diver. Cocoon. Sea of Stars. And Marvel Spider-Man 2. Do you want to just say what the ones that just missed out? I think Jedi Survivor
just missed out.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest only had one vote each.
Okay. So let's just have a quick look first who... make sure you can't see it on the camera. How many people went and voted? 63 people voted.
Nice.
Which is way more than I expected. Thank you. That's an extra 3 as well within the last hour. Because I put a little call out on Discord, yes.
So essentially, we've asked you to order them your top 10. So your number 1 game will get 10 points down to your number 10 game getting 1 point. And then we've totaled that up. Mm-hmm. And now we have the results.
We do. And just checking. Oh. Yes. We have.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, there are no ties. But I mean, I'll go through it. There are some very close ones.
Okay. So, your number 10 game of the year.
In 10th place with 253 points.
That's a lot.
So, I mean, to be honest, the most was 498. So it's still...
Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty close.
It's quite spread.
Nice.
In 10th place with 253 points, Lethal Company.
Nice.
The game which we don't really know. And we think I feel like that got nominations with recency bias because it's just come out and people are playing it a lot on Twitch.
It's very popular at the moment, though. I feel like we should maybe look into it. Maybe.
I think it's a bit grim. It's not my kind of thing.
It's not for Ben.
No. In 9th place with 262 points, it's very close. Cocoon.
Should have been higher.
So Cocoon in 9th place. In 8th place with 278 points. Hi-Fi Rush.
Nice.
So,
deserving. Very deserving.
Then in 7th place, Dave the Diver. Interestingly, well, if we call that an indie, those 4 are all indie games.
They're not indie games. Hi-Fi Rush is not an indie game.
Is it not?
No.
But it's kind of like indie
It's
style.
Tango within Bethesda, within Microsoft.
But it's not a AAA game.
It's got Microsoft money. That's not an indie game.
It's not AAA. Okay, 10, 9, 8, 7. In 6th place, just missing out on the top 5, Super Mario Wonder,
Oh.
which I thought might have got higher with it being recent, very, very recent.
maybe.
But no. Okay, so the top 5, and Super Mario Wonder had 355 points, so it was quite a bit higher than Dave the Diver. Now, these next 2 are split by 1 point. In 5th place with 368 points, Final Fantasy 16.
Ooh.
Yes, so that was 5th. In 4th place with 369 points, just literally just 1 point more.
Nice.
See, that's how your every vote counts. It's not like the election. Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Ooh.
So Spider-Man 2 wins by 1 point. And then, so the top 3 games in alphabetical order.
Just go through them. We can remember. It's
Okay.
fine.
Can you remember? In 3rd place with 375 points. So only 6 more than Spider-Man 2. So that's how close those were. There were, literally 7 points between 3rd and 5th. Sea of Stars.
Ooh, number 3. Yes, community.
I mean, I was impressed. I was impressed with
very
Sea of
happy with
Stars,
that.
especially because neither of us streamed it.
No, I just raved
So
about it
it's-
on podcast.
Yeah. So that means that the top 2, one of them is Baldur's Gate 3 and the other one is Tears of the Kingdom. The winner.
Oh, no, just do 2nd place with the scores.
Okay.
I wanted the points.
In 2nd place with 405 points, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh.
And the winner,
With how many points?
498 points.
What was the difference? I've forgotten the number.
Nearly 100.
Nearly 100
Yeah,
difference.
over 90 points
Okay, so
different.
your runaway winner
The
then.
runaway winner. I'm going to show you on the camera here to this. Well, if you look on Ed's there. So the winner with 498 points. That is how close. I mean, if I can show you. Wait, here. Like, yeah, you can see the bars. I'll post this on
Yeah,
the screen as well
screenshot
at some point. But yeah, with 498 points, Baldur's Gate 3, the runaway winner of the Community Game of the Year 2023.
GG.
That was a great game.
Congratulations.
In fact, if I switch to this, I'll quickly get it ready so you can see it on the main screen. But yeah, what do you think of Baldur's Gate 3 winning then?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I know how much like the general gaming community has fallen in love with that game, let alone our Swapping Joysticks viewers and listeners. And we've talked about it a lot. We've obviously interviewed 2 of the voice actors, which I'm sure has brought people in. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all. But it's a great choice. It's a great game.
It really is. And I think people are still going to be playing it next year as well. So let me just quickly switch over to the other screen. So if anybody is watching this on YouTube, on YouTube, you can see. But yeah, that is the full total. It's interesting to see which ones are really, really close. Like Spider-Man 2 and 16 just being 1 point ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Then Baldur's Gate winning by 93 points. Yeah, 93 points is, I mean, that's a very much a clear winner
Yes,
for this community.
absolutely.
Interesting.
And so many Game of the Year lists have had either Baldur's Gate or Zelda at top. And
No different
like
here.
it's no different here, but we've gone with Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice choice, everyone.
Brilliant. Well, that is it for the Swapping Joysticks Awards 2023. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you agree with them. And if, to be honest, I mean, it's inspired me to play some games. So hopefully there are people
Good.
watching it and going like, hey, actually, that game sounds like my kind of thing. And they want to go and play it as well. So if you do, let
Just
us know.
don't play the day before. Well, you can't now anyway. You
No.
can buy it.
Just let us know in the comments below if you're going to be playing any of those games or if there's anything that you really liked. Anything that you completely disagree with. Did we miss out on anybody? Like Sexiest Voice, I'm sure there'll be people who are like, hey, there's this character and we'll listen. Or best boss fights. So
Yeah, there's probably some bosses we missed out on.
are any games that are missed? I know. Yeah, I mean the game of the year one. We asked the community multiple times to vote and for nominations and also to vote
We
for
had
it. So
plenty.
I'm sure there
and
aren't
we've
any
had
things missing.
so many points here. And that, to be fair, even as a top 10, that's a very, very good list of games.
It really is. I mean, yeah, Lethal Company. I am intrigued to see. I need to go on Twitch. I think it's a Twitch game that people are loving. But yeah, so thank you so much. If you, like I said, if you enjoyed that, go and leave a comment and give us a like and subscribe. And see, I feel dirty when I say that, but I think that's just,
Like a proper YouTuber.
yeah, like and subscribe. I need a
Ring the bell.
no, I need a thing that like pops up on the screen so I don't have to do it myself.
Sure.
But yeah, no, that was the Swapping Joysticks Swapping Joysticks Awards 2023. Next week is the Swapping Joysticks Game of the Year
So
podcast.
Just us, I'm afraid.
Just us, our top 10. It'll be a lot shorter than 2 hours 20. I can guarantee that. Well,
Will it?
I can imagine it will be, but we will.
I thought this was going to be the shorter one.
I did at the start, and then we started yabbering.
Yeah, always the way.
But yeah, we're so that will be next week. So stay tuned. What's the reigning game of the year? Elden Ring.
Yes.
What was the one before? It was
Unpacking.
Unpacking. Two very
And
different.
the year before that was Final Fantasy 7. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Final Fantasy 7.
Yes. Remake. It was. So which will follow in? I mean, just by looking at those three, they're all completely different games,
Yeah.
different genres. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. It might maybe we could do like a little prediction and like fold a piece of paper and see if we correct. No, but then we're gonna end up fighting for that one, so it's a bit pointless. But yeah, so we didn't do a question.
No, I forgot about that.
The question. So the first question will be, what? Oh, it should be like a comprehension of the podcast. What game did? Oh, let's just think of.
Like, well, I've got a question.
Yeah.
From the chat that we've had. Name the studio.
Oh, that's gonna be obviously easy to Google.
Oh, okay.
What was the? Right, I'd say something while I find something.
Well, I love how Ben just doesn't think of these things and throws it on me.
What game surprised me because I didn't like it at first and I ended up liking it?
Sure.
There you go. So that will be answer one. Keep hold of that. Next week, there'll be a second question and there'll be a form that you can put in and you can win one of the top 10 game of the years. It's an actual game.
As opposed
to a t-shirt with I Love BB on it or something like that.
Wow.
Something that you can actually enjoy. So yeah, next week, go and listen to us. And and there'll be a form, and I'll put the form also in the podcast as well. So you're not going to kind of be at any disadvantage whether you watch it on YouTube or you listen to it on your favorite podcast player.
Nice.
But thank you very much for watching. Ed, where can people find you?
You can find me at ed_nights on Twitch and on Twitter.
And you can find me at Biggest Benners pretty much everywhere, or Biggest Benners1 on the old Twitter. And go to swappingjoysticks.com if you want to subscribe to us on any podcast play, including like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or any of your like podcast players that you've got. And what was I going to say? One final thing.
Happy Christmas.
I was going to say, that literally was what I was going to say. I was like, wait, this is going out just before Christmas. So yeah, have a fantastic Christmas. I hope Santa leaves a massive load
all over your carpet
of presents and empties his sack all over your living room. Have a wonderful Christmas. Don't eat too much eggnog. Bye-bye.
Eat.
Eat?
You drink eggnog.
I've never had it. It's not like a pancake. It's not like rice pudding.
No, it's a drink.
Okay, brilliant. See you later.